Chapter 1289. In the following period of time, Chu Luiyue stayed obediently in Ninheng Mountain. For some reason, De Bao did not appear again. Chu Luiyue did not know where he had gone, nor did she know how to find him. Thus, she decided to stay in her own place and cultivate in peace. Sometimes, she would study the Xian formation left behind by De Bao, and sometimes she would flip through the doctor's medicine manual that Elder Wanzheng had given her. Chu Luiyue originally thought that these two things would consume a lot of brain power and energy. After all, with her current strength, it would be very difficult for her to comprehend these things. But soon, she realized that the truth was completely different from what she had expected. When she was learning these things, she did not feel that it was too difficult. In fact, occasionally, she would even feel a subtle sense of familiarity. It was as if she knew how to do it all along. Chu Luiyue hid these thoughts extremely well and cultivated quietly as usual. The only thing she was worried about was Dumpling. A month had passed, but Dumpling had yet to come out. She did not know how it was doing during this period of time. According to the three-eyed eagle, such a long time should be enough for Dumpling to completely activate the power of its bloodline. What made her even more uneasy was that the opening of Thousand Wine Mountain had been delayed again and again. Many students in the academy were puzzled by this, but most of them did not delve into it. After all, to them, Thousand Wine Mountain was just a place where they could occasionally relax and have fun. Even if it was closed for a month, or even 3 to 5 months, it would not affect them much. However, Chu Luiyue sensed that something was amiss. She had tried to inquire about Thousand Wine Mountain several times, but it was to no avail. In the end, because she was afraid of arousing suspicion, she could only temporarily quiet down and wait silently. Right now, no news should be the best news. Before Chu Luiyue could hear the news of Thousand Wine Mountain opening, another person arrived first. Shang Yusen. The moment Chu Luiyue saw that it was him, she understood why he was here. "Greetings, Elder." Chu Luiyue stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Shang Yusen glanced at the barrier of Ninheng Mountain behind her and could not help but say, "Rongxiu really thinks highly of you. Not only did he drag you to Thousand Wine Mountain, but he even let you stay here." He shrugged. "You have to know that even we don't have the qualifications." Chu Luiyue smiled and asked, "You're here for that thing?" Shang Yusen. "I didn't expect you to be even more straightforward. Let's get to the point. You've helped me so much before. If I still beat around the bush with you now, wouldn't that be too much?" Shang Yusen enjoyed Chu Luiyue's words. "Good. Then let's not waste any more time. Let's go." Chu Luiyue paused. "Where?" Shang Yusen looked at her with a strange expression. "Of course we're going to my territory. You can't be thinking of showing it to me right here, right?" Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. After all, it was a rare treasure, and other than the elders, the students in the academy did not know about it. If Shang Yusen wanted to study it, he naturally had to choose a safe and hidden place. It was best to go to his place. Chu Luiyue nodded. "Elder is wise." Shang Yusen stayed with the artificers. This was the first time Chu Luiyue had come here, so she was somewhat curious. Unlike the other 3 regions, which were bustling with activity, this place was deserted. If it weren't for the fact that Chu Luiyue could sense the few strong and hidden auras in the mountains, she would have really thought that there was no one here. However, after entering, Chu Luiyue noticed even more differences. The innermost mountains were all barren, and many of them were already charred black. It seemed that they had triggered too much Tianlei to become like this. In the canyon between the mountains, all kinds of artificing materials that were rarely seen in the outside world could be seen everywhere, as if they were free. There were also some failed yuan tools that were piled up into small mountains. In fact, not all of them were incomplete. Some of them did not meet the standards that the artificers wanted, so they were casually thrown away. Chu Luyue was sure that if she took out the few at the edge, people would definitely swarm to her if she took them out. However, it was clear that they did not intend to do so. Chu Luyue looked around and could not help but sigh in her heart. These artificers' elders were really carefree and rich. Some of those yuan tools should still be usable, right? Wouldn't it be a pity to throw them away just like that? After walking for a while, Chu Luyue finally could not help but ask. Shang Yusen followed her gaze and shook his head indifferently. What's the point of taking those scrap metals? It's fine to throw them away. It'll be embarrassing if they get out. Oh. Chu Luyue responded silently. She really did not understand the world of artificers. Here, my residence is in front. Shang Yusen pointed forward. When I return to the academy, I'll stay there. Chu Luyue took a look and found that it was an inconspicuous mountain. However, Shang Yusen's words made her feel a little surprised. You? Haven't you always been in the academy? Shang Yusen nodded. Yes. Usually, I'll only stay here for about 2 months a year. This year, the situation is a little special. I just happened to be here for a breakthrough, so I stayed until now. Chu Luyue's eyes widened slightly. As far as she knew, most of the elders in the academy lived in the academy all year round. She had never seen someone like Shang Yusen, who only stayed for 2 months a year. As if seeing her doubts, Shang Yusen laughed. Why are you so surprised? I'm not an official elder of the academy, so I can't stay here for a long time. Chu Luyue was really shocked this time. You're not an official elder? That's right. Shang Yusen flew forward and landed directly. Chu Luyue followed closely behind. I'm a member of the Shang family of the Illusory Sky Manor. It's already extremely rare for me to be able to bear the title of elder in the academy. If it was someone from another first-rate family, they wouldn't even be able to do this. This short sentence contained too much information. Chu Luyue's mind spun quickly and she quickly understood. The Illusory Sky Manor was the same as the Yuntian Tower, a first-rate family in the Divine Ruins world. A disciple with such a background could study in Lingxiao College, but he could not become an elder here. Since the day Lingxiao College was established, there has been this rule. It's still the same today. It's also because of this that the academy can always maintain a neutral position in the Divine Ruins world and maintain a relatively balanced relationship with the major families and sections. Chu Luyue nodded thoughtfully. Then, for you to be able to become an elder, you must have something extraordinary, right? Shang Yusen laughed. You're wrong about that. The reason why I can become half an elder of the academy is because I once saved the dean's precious disciple. Chu Luyue's heart suddenly jumped. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1290. It's a long story, and I don't think you'd like to hear it. Shang Yusen didn't seem to have any intention of continuing. Chu Luyue's lips moved and said, actually, after coming to the academy, I've heard a lot of rumors about that person. Shang Yusen glanced at her with some surprise, then immediately smiled in understanding. That's true. The Azure Cloud role has always been there, but her name has been erased. It's inevitable that there will be some news below. Unlike the other elders who were somewhat secretive, Shang Yusen's attitude seemed to be much more relaxed when he mentioned this. Perhaps it was because he wasn't an official elder of the academy. Chu Luyue thought to herself. Actually, speaking of which, the two of you are very similar in many ways. Shang Yusen sized up Chu Luyue. Back then, when she first came to the academy, she was also sent to Pengmin Mountain on the second day. After she came out, she kept making mistakes, but the dean protected her, and the elders also doted on her. Therefore, they turned a blind eye and couldn't bear to punish her severely. He let out a sigh of regret. Unfortunately, later, his voice stopped abruptly. Chu Luyue had mixed feelings when she heard this. In fact, after coming to the academy, she vaguely sensed that the elders were very tolerant of her back then, and even indulged her. Otherwise, how could they let a student like her open the academy's barrier at will? In the end, they were biased. Unfortunately, she didn't remember any of this. She didn't even have any impression of Shang Yusen saving her. Forget it. These old things are in the past. Shang Yusen quickly adjusted and looked at Chu Luyue expectantly. That Scarlet Heaven sword, Chu Luyue lightly nodded, and a thought popped up in her mind as she summoned Qi Shao sword. She handed the sword over. Elder, please. Shang Yusen's breathing stagnated, and his eyes seemed to be glued to Scarlet Heaven sword. Excitement, eagerness, emotion, that was the look of waiting for so many years. He took a deep breath and stretched out his hand to receive the sword. But halfway through, he hurriedly wiped his hand on his clothes, and then carefully and sincerely received the sword. Although Chu Luyue knew that he liked Scarlet Heaven's sword, he didn't expect him to be so serious about it. This had already become his obsession. Shang Yusen held the scabbard in one hand and the hilt in the other, holding his breath in concentration. After he calmed down a little, he began to slowly pull out Scarlet Heaven's sword. A gleam of snow, cold and sharp. Just by looking at it, he felt as if he was going to be cut by that terrifying sword Qi. Shang Yusen's face was flushed with excitement, and his eyes were shining. The venerable artifact, it really lives up to its name. His eyes swept across the top of the table. This included every pattern on the scabbard, the dragon head on the hilt, and the blade that was polished to perfection. Every part of it was done to perfection. Chu Luyue watched from the side as he couldn't hide his excitement. For a moment, he felt rather emotional. Perhaps, this was what a true refiner was like. He would always hold reverence and admiration for the top artifact. It was hard to imagine that a person who had always been arrogant and carefree would have such a sincere and serious moment. Clang! Shang Yusen finally pulled out the sword. This sword was more than 1,000 caddies heavy, and even he had to struggle to pick it up. The powerful pressure almost made it hard for him to breathe. But Shang Yusen still insisted on picking it up. Only his hands were trembling badly. Chu Luyue narrowed her eyes. Strange, this sword wasn't heavy when she held it in her hand. Why did it become like this in Shang Yusen's hand? Even when she and Jean Lei fought for this thing in the beginning, it hadn't recognized its owner yet, and its weight didn't seem to be so exaggerated. She thought for a moment and asked her doubts. Shang Yusen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Silly. This Scarlet Heaven sword didn't have a soul before, so of course, it was just ordinary. That's why so many people fought for it. Now that you have refined its soul and become its owner, it will naturally be 10 times or 100 times heavier than before. With that, he finally couldn't hold on any longer and put down the Scarlet Heaven sword. The tip of the sword stabbed into the ground, and a huge crack instantly appeared. He gasped for breath and said, "Do you think everyone is as lucky as you?" Chu Luyue suddenly realized, so that's how it is. Thank you for your guidance, Elder. Shang Yusen raised a finger and pointed at her. You, sigh, this world is really unfair. He had been longing for this Scarlet Heaven sword for so many years, but in the end, it was all for naught. And Chu Yu? He didn't know anything about it, but he had inexplicably become the owner of the Scarlet Heaven sword. Comparing oneself to others would only make one angry. This was exactly what they meant. Meeting Chu Luyue's clear and clean eyes, he couldn't say a word again. Forget it, what's the point of saying all this now? Here, I'll return it to you. Shang Yusen sent the Scarlet Heaven sword towards Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue was a little surprised. You're not going to take a closer look? Didn't you say that you wanted to observe and study it? You seem to be looking at it a little too quickly. Shang Yusen couldn't help but laugh again. I want to see its structure. What do you think I'm looking at? Even if I look at it for a day or a month, it won't be mine anymore. Hurry up. This thing is too heavy, he urged. Chu Luiyue reached out and took the Scarlet Heaven sword back. She raised it and took a look. You just said that you want to see its structure. Is this very important? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1291. Of course it's important. At the mention of this, Shang Yusen immediately perked up and began to explain to Chu Luiyue. Refining is refining materials into treasures. Whether or not you can refine an outstanding yuan instrument depends on the materials and the structure. These two factors determine the amount of Tianlei tempering it can withstand. You must know that the more Tianlei is triggered, the stronger the yuan instrument will be, and naturally, the more useful it will be. Look at this Scarlet Cloud sword. It's top-notch in all aspects. Only in this way can you refine a venerable artifact. He sighed. Back then, that person exhausted his blood, sweat, and energy to refine this Scarlet Cloud sword. It's a pity that it was buried deep in the Dark Feather's abyss for thousands of years and never saw the light of day. Now that it's in your hands, you can inherit it. If that person's spirit is in heaven, he should be quite pleased, right? The higher the level of the yuan instrument, the harder it is to comprehend the mysteries hidden in it. This Scarlet Cloud sword is the same. I only stared at it for a while just now, and I already felt a little uncomfortable. But whether I can comprehend it or not is still unknown. Shang Yusen said very honestly. It's a pity that you're not a blacksmith. If you are, and you have such a treasure in your hands, it'll be much more convenient for you than others. If you're talented enough, you might have the chance to refine a powerful divine artifact in the future. There was no lack of regret in his words. Chu Luiyue listened quietly, but his heart skipped a beat. A blacksmith, strictly speaking, she should be considered half a blacksmith, right? The first thing a true weapon refiner needed to do was to be able to trigger heavenly lightning. A cultivator could only be sure if they had the talent to become a blacksmith after breaking through the shackles and becoming a god-level powerhouse. As for whether she had the potential to become a blacksmith, she would only know after she broke through to god-level powerhouse. Shang Yusen casually found a place to sit cross-legged. I'll meditate for a while first. You can look around. By the way, there are many things piled up at the back of the mountain. If there's anything you like, just take it. After saying that, he closed his eyes as if he was really going to cultivate. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment and could not help but ask. Elder. There's something I want to ask you. Shang Yusen's eyes were still closed, calm and composed. Speak. Chu Luiyue paused. I caused so much trouble on Thousand Wine Mountain the other day. I wonder if it's fixed now. Shang Yusen snorted and looked at her. You're still concerned about this? Don't worry. The damage you caused that day was not small, but during this period of time, we have been repairing it overnight. Basically, it is as good as new. Then why hasn't it been opened yet? Chu Luiyue quickly added, I thought it was because I caused too much of a problem. I've been feeling very uneasy. Shang Yusen did not suspect anything and waved his hand. Don't worry, the 10,000 Wine Mountain is fine. As for why it hasn't been opened recently, Bo Yan has his own considerations, so you don't have to worry. After asking for a long time, Chu Luiyue had no choice but to give up. Seeing that Shang Yusen had already begun to cultivate, Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and decided to stroll around. Since it was rare for her to come here, she naturally had to take a good look. Moreover, her name was also on the weapon refining ranking, which meant that she had some talent in this area back then. Looking around, she might be able to recall something. The surroundings were silent. Moreover, there was not much to see on the mountain. Probably because refining would cause Tianlei to stir, there was not even a place to stay on the mountain. Instead, there were traces of refining everywhere. This was the territory of Shang Yusen, who only stayed in the academy for 2 months a year. If it were anyone else, half of the mountain would have been split open. Unknowingly, Chu Luiyue walked to the back of the mountain. Her eyes lit up. There were indeed many good things piled up here. Weapon refiners would collect all kinds of precious materials to prepare for refining, but they might not really be used. Just like the things piled up here. Any one of them should be able to be exchanged for a lot of money. It had to be said that weapon refiners were even prouder than celestial physician. They were not even worried that their things would be stolen. Chu Luiyue walked over to take a look and picked a few interesting things. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed. On a small mountain of all kinds of jade, there seemed to be a palm-sized jade pendant sandwiched in the middle. Under the sunlight, it shone faintly. This jade pendant was completely white, clear and lustrous. Probably because it had been there for some time, there were already some traces of time on it. Placed in this pile of jade, it really did not stand out. However, Chu Luiyue's eyes were fixed on the jade pendant, her heart beating violently. She reached out and carefully took off the jade pendant, placing it in the palm of her hand to examine it carefully. It was a round jade pendant. At the bottom corner, there was a fingernail-sized defect, as if it was accidentally broken. Looking at it carefully, there were a few thin cracks at the edge of the defect. It was as if the jade pendant would completely shatter with a light touch. However, these were not the main points of Chu Luiyue's attention. What she cared about was the pattern on it. In the middle of the jade pendant, there was a pattern of a sword cutting off a dragon's head. She could not be more familiar with this pattern. Chu Luiyue's hand trembled slightly as she turned the jade pendant over. On the back, there were 2 small engraved words that were extremely worn out. However, after wiping off the dust, the words were still clear and legible. Heavenly Order. This was something from the Tianling dynasty. At this moment, Chu Luiyue was extremely sure. This pattern, this engraved words, all of them showed its origin. Most importantly, this handwriting, if she was not mistaken, it was Taizu's handwriting. Chu Luiyue suppressed her violently beating heart and said softly, "Taizu." Sensing that her mood seemed to be a little off, Taizu's voice carried a trace of worry. What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue tried to make her voice sound as calm as possible. "There's something that I want you to personally identify. I wonder if it's convenient for you to come out?" Taizu only hesitated for a moment before coming out of Scarlet Heaven Sword. Although it was somewhat inappropriate for him to appear here, and he might even be noticed by the people of Lingxiao College, he was more concerned about Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue handed over the jade pendant. "Taizu, please take a look. Is this yours?" Taizu stepped forward and took a closer look. With just one look, his expression abruptly changed. Chu Luiyue immediately confirmed in her heart that this was Taizu's item. Sure enough, Taizu immediately said, This is indeed my jade pendant. Why would it appear here?" Chu Luiyue pointed at the gap above. "Taizu, there are bloodstains in these cracks. Is this yours?" Mobile user, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1292. The blood had seeped into the cracks. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. Moreover, the color was dark and dry, as if a long time had passed. Taizu frowned and stared at the jade pendant for a long time before slowly reaching out his hand. He felt a familiar throbbing. He spoke with difficulty. "That's right. This is my blood. And there should be a part of my soul sealed inside." Chu Luiyue looked up in shock. "Really?" Taizu's translucent hand gently brushed past the broken jade pendant. "Yes. I used to carry this jade pendant with me. Later. I don't remember what happened after that." His voice was exceptionally low and slow, as if it was wrapped in 1,000 years of wind and frost. It carried the smell of rust and blood, as well as the long-lost smell of time and space. Before seeing this jade pendant today, I had never thought of its existence. And now, I don't remember how I lost it. Chu Luyue pondered for a moment and guessed. Taizu, perhaps you deliberately threw away this jade pendant? Otherwise, why would a part of his soul be sealed inside? Taizu didn't speak for a long time, his eyes bottomless. In fact, in his heart, he also agreed with Chu Luyue's theory. Previously, when Chu Luyue refined the Scarlet Heaven Sword soul, he was shocked to discover that he wasn't a remnant consciousness, but a soul. During this period of time, he had been thinking about this question, but he couldn't remember what happened back then. It wasn't until he saw this jade pendant that he was even more certain of his previous suspicions. He was indeed still alive. Chu Luyue looked at Taizu with a complicated gaze. Taizu, do you really not remember at all? Perhaps, fusing the soul in this jade pendant with you will be of some use? Taizu pondered for a moment before slowly nodding. I'll try my best. His two souls had been separated for 1,000 years. It wouldn't be so easy to fuse them again. Chu Luyue clenched the jade pendant in his hand. Don't worry, I will do my best to help you. Taizu was still alive, and he had found other souls. As long as his soul was pieced together, he might be able to find an opportunity to help Taizu possess his body and help him be reborn. This thought made Chu Luyue excited. I'll ask the elder. He might know the origin of the jade pendant. Tracing back to the source, it would only be a matter of time before he could find out what had happened back then. Shang Yusen looked at the jade pendant in his hand and frowned as he recalled for a while. In the end, he shook his head. Teet. To sate. Regarding this jade pendant, I really can't think of anything. Chu Luyue took the jade pendant and lowered his eyes. In fact, she had already expected this result. The material of this jade pendant might be good for ordinary people, but in front of a refiner like Shang Yusen, it was not very eye-catching. Otherwise, it would not have been thrown to the back of the mountain. He probably did not even take a second look at it, let alone anything else. Thank you. I'll think of another way. Seeing Chu Luyue being so persistent, Shang Yusen was curious. Is this jade pendant very important to you? Chu Luyue held the jade pendant tightly and nodded seriously. This is my ancestors. Shang Yusen understood. No wonder. Since that's the case, I'll return this jade pendant to you from today onwards. You must take good care of it in the future. Maybe one day, you'll find some clues. Chu Luyue nodded. Thank you. She paused for a moment and said, if there's nothing else. Shang Yusen knew what she was going to say and immediately agreed. No one can be calm after finding such a thing. You should go back and have a good rest. Chu Luyue held the jade pendant tightly and thanked him again before leaving. On the way back, Chu Luyue still felt a little absent-minded. She had never thought that she would find the jade pendant that Taizu had lost just by going to Shang Yusen's place. More importantly, there was a strand of the great ancestor's soul inside. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Perhaps this was the arrangement of the heavens? Chu Luyue was shocked and relieved. There was also an indescribable joy in her heart. Taizu had treated her with great kindness. If she could help Taizu come back to life, it would be great. Taizu, do you know what preparations you need to make to fuse with a soul? Chu Luyue asked nervously. After a moment, Taizu said in a deep voice, I'm afraid it's much more difficult than you think. Chu Luyue was stunned. You mean, back then, I had already created half of the divine realm and could be considered a demigod. If you want to fuse with such a soul, you have to at least reach the level of a doctor. Otherwise, it would only be a futile effort. Is that so? Taizu's words calmed Chu Luyue down. From the looks of it, this matter will take a long time to plan. But no matter what, it's already extremely lucky to be able to find your soul. Taizu replied and fell silent again. Chu Luiyue knew that he needed some time now, so she didn't disturb him anymore. Chu Luiyue had just walked to Qingming Square and was about to turn in the direction of Mount Jiuheng when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. She turned her head and saw Luo Yanming. She smiled and greeted her. Luo Yanming walked over and said with emotion, "I finally see you. Why didn't you show your face during this period of time?" Chu Luiyue could only find an excuse to dodge it. "I've been busy cultivating recently, so I haven't been out much." "Why, do you need something from me?" "Ah, right, we agreed to spar before." Chu Luiyue patted her head lightly. "Look at my memory, I forgot when I was busy." Luo Yanming chuckled. "So you still remember? That's good. But I didn't call you here today because of this." "Oh? The Academy released the mission list today. I was planning to take a look. Do you want to come with me?" "Mission list?" Chu Luiyue was confused. "What's that?" Luo Yanming couldn't help but laugh. "Looks like you haven't been out much recently. You don't even know about such a big thing. The Academy will release the mission list every quarter. The first to complete the mission will receive an extremely generous reward. Many people are eager to give it a try. Don't you want to take a look?" Chu Luiyue was actually not interested in this matter. After all, she had enough things to do now. But seeing Luo Yanming's eager face, she asked, "What mission is it?" Luo Yanming's eyes lit up. "I heard that it's related to the Heavenly Square Cauldron. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 1293. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment, almost suspecting that she had heard wrongly. She slowly asked, "What?" Luo Yanming thought that she did not understand, so she explained, "The Heavenly Square Cauldron. It's rumored to be one of the 10 great sacred artifacts of the Divine Ruins world." "You don't know?" Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. She really didn't seem to know. How did the Heavenly Square Cauldron suddenly become one of the 10 great sacred artifacts of the Divine Ruins world? That thing had been in her body for so long, but she had never found anything wrong with it. Oh, except for the fact that it was especially powerful and could store things. Chu Luiyue held her forehead and rubbed her temples. "Tell me in detail what's going on." Luo Yanming said, "I really can't explain this matter clearly with just a few words. If you really want to know, just look at the mission board and everything will be clear." Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her jade-like eyes had already returned to their usual calm and dark state. "Where's the mission board?" Luo Yanming brought Chu Luiyue to the side of the Donghuang Bell Tower. At this moment, there were already many people gathered here. Luo Yanming raised her hand, "Look. It's right up there." Chu Luiyue looked up. On the black wall, there were a few lines of words shining. At the top were the words, "Mission Board." Below was the arrangement and explanation of the relevant content. This was originally the location of the martial artist ranking, but now it was on the mission board, so it didn't seem out of place. Chu Luiyue read it back and forth a few times before she finally figured it out. There was a place in the Divine Ruins world called the Northern Territory of the Great Desolate Land. The environment there was extremely harsh, and it was almost deserted. But recently, it had become an extremely lively place. Because the rumored Heavenly Square Cauldron was about to appear there. The Heavenly Square Cauldron had been lost 1,000 years ago, and there had been no news of it in the Divine Ruins world. Until recently, the news of the Heavenly Square Cauldron's reappearance had spread like wildfire. All the major clans and sects were eager to take it for themselves. Under normal circumstances, Lingxiao College rarely participated in such battles. However, the appearance of a holy object like the Heavenly Square Cauldron would greatly affect the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. Moreover, it was very likely that other artifacts would appear, which would be very beneficial. Therefore, after a discussion among the Academy elders, they decided to list it as the mission this time. Whoever could stay in the northern region of Untainted Land for a month or find a divine weapon related to the Heavenly Square Cauldron would complete the mission. All in all, it would be more accurate to call this mission an experience. The northern region of the Great Desolate Land. I heard that place is very dangerous. I don't even know if I can return safely from there, right? But that's the place where the Heavenly Square Cauldron is about to appear. You don't want to go, but there are others who do. That's right. Furthermore, it was stated that the elders would go together to ensure everyone's safety. As long as you feel that something is wrong, you can ask for help and leave as soon as possible. There won't be any danger. So what if it's dangerous? If he could see the Heavenly Square Cauldron with his own eyes, his death would be worth it. I came to the academy to become stronger. When can I become a real expert if I'm so timid? The many students gathered together were discussing animatedly. Chu Luiyue listened for a while. Most people were inclined to take the risk. After all, the name of the 10 great sacred artifacts in the divine ruins was too tempting. What do you think, Chu Yu? Are you going? Luo Yanming asked nervously and expectantly. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and said, I'll go back and think about it. Luo Yanming nodded. You can team up with this. Sure, Zhuosheng and I have already decided to go together. If you want to go, just let us know and we'll go together. Chu Luiyue took another look at the mission list before leaving. Jiuheng Mountain. In the room, Chu Luiyue rested his chin on one hand and frowned slightly. The Heavenly Square Cauldron. What's going on? This thing was obtained by accident when she subdued the three-eyed eagle. In the blink of an eye, it had become such a precious item. There was actually another Heavenly Square Cauldron in the so-called northern region of the Untainted Land? Are there 2 Heavenly Square Cauldrons in this world? Of course not. The three-eyed eagle's cold voice suddenly sounded. There's only one Heavenly Square Cauldron in the entire continent, and it's with you right now. But the one in the northern region of the Untainted Land, either someone made a wrong judgment or someone deliberately spread rumors. In short, it's all fake and can't be trusted. The three-eyed eagle's tone was very firm and certain. Chu Luiyue thought to herself after hearing this. After a long while, she slowly said, this should be a trap set up by someone. Why do you say so? The three-eyed eagle asked. If 1 or 2 people made a wrong judgment, it would be pardonable. But now that the news has spread throughout the entire Divine Ruins world, even the elders of Lingxiao College haven't noticed anything unusual. This is a bit strange. Chu Luiyue felt that the elders should still have the ability to judge. But now, even they were convinced and were even prepared to bring their students over. It was obvious that someone had used some method to make everyone believe that this news was true. The Heavenly Square Cauldron had not appeared for 1,000 years. Even if someone suspected that there was a problem, they could not produce any evidence. Unless the real Heavenly Square Cauldron appeared. And at this moment, it was with her. Other than Lingxiao College, this matter also involved many first-rate families and sections. Who was the person behind this? How could he have such a shocking move? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1294. Chu Luiyue felt that she had faintly sensed a huge conspiracy. A chill ran from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head, causing her to shudder. She poured herself a cup of tea to moisten her dry throat. How could she tell the elders about this? If she couldn't produce any evidence, no one would believe her. They might even think that there was something wrong with her brain. But if she just let them go, she felt very uneasy. Chu Luiyue's hand slowly rubbed against the cup, and she asked after a while, she asked, how can you prove that the one in my body is the real heavenly square cauldron? The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment before saying, do you think it's fake when it can suppress me for 1,000 years? Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. Besides, don't forget. The great phoenix dragon skeleton was also suppressed in it, and now there are two Tian babies sealed in it. Any one of these was ironclad evidence. In the world, there were less than 5 people who could do this. Chu Luiyue sighed. You're right. I was thinking too much. The heavenly square cauldron is a supreme treasure, even more powerful than your red cloud sword. So now, no matter what, you can't leak this news. Otherwise, you will be surrounded by wolves. The legendary three-eyed eagle warned. I understand. Chu Luiyue drank the rest of the tea in one gulp. I'll think of another way. Tianling Dynasty. Imperial Palace, Zhaoyu Hall. It was already night time, and the bright moon hung high in the sky. Octagonal glass lamps were hung inside and outside the hall. The light was so bright that it elongated one's shadow. Sheng Guanyu stood on the steps in front of the door, looking at the moon and sighing. I wonder how you, is doing over there. Counting the time, it had already been several months. Except for a few letters, there was no other news. After a long time, he was panicking. Your Majesty, Her Highness is now the Princess of the Yuntian Tower. Her status is noble. Moreover, with that person protecting him, you don't have to worry. Behind Sheng Guanyu, Sun Yi was wearing a green robe. His expression was calm, and his long and narrow eyes were indifferent. That's exactly why I'm so worried. Sheng Guanyu shook his head and sighed. I didn't expect Rong Xiu's identity to be so shocking. I wonder how many people will criticize Er's identity. It had been a long time since he received the news, but every time he thought about it, Sheng Guanyu's heart would still ripple. She's alone there. What if she gets bullied? In the Tianling dynasty, Her was the new empress with a noble status and was above millions of people. But on the other side, this was not worth mentioning. He understood too well how important one's background was in that kind of place. If she were to suffer any grievances, there would be no one to back her up even though they were thousands of miles apart. Although Rong Xiu could help her, he couldn't possibly watch over her all the time, right? The hearts of parents in the world were pitiful. Thinking of this, Sheng Guanyu could not help but turn around. Sun Yi, do you have any way to cross? It was always good to have one more person to help. Sun Yi pondered for a moment. Her Highness didn't give this order. Sheng Guanyu was a little helpless. The 13 Yu guards had always only listened to you, and he could not command them. But in the entire Tianling dynasty, he could only trust these people. Sun Yi continued. We'll be loyal to you and will definitely prioritize Her Highness's safety. Hearing this, Sheng Guanyu's heart calmed down a little. That's good, that's good. With that, he left with his hands behind his back. Sun Yi sent him off for a long distance before returning to Zhaoyu Hall. In the end, he bumped into Qi Han, who had returned from a long journey. Big brother, there's a situation. Sun Yi narrowed his eyes. Speak. Qi Han's expression was solemn, and the scars on his face were even more murderous. Someone went to the Empire of Yaochen and seems to be secretly investigating Her Highness. The other party is extremely powerful, and we paid a huge price to deal with them. But, the other party probably won't give up just like that. Sun Yi frowned. Have you found out who it is? Qi Han hesitated for a moment. It seems to be someone from that side. Otherwise, he really couldn't think of anyone else who could be so powerful. But it seems that someone is helping us. Qi Han hesitated for a moment before lowering his voice and speaking. Sun Yi didn't seem surprised by this. It's his duty to protect Her Highness. Do what you did before, and do what you will in the future. Also, send more people to the Empire of Yaochen. With that person's help, there shouldn't be any problems. Yes. Xiaofan was about to turn and leave when he suddenly thought of something and asked, Big brother, are we really going to keep waiting here? Her Highness has been in the Divine Ruins world for so long, and I don't know what's going on. Cini shook his head. We just have to do what Her Highness instructed us to do. Xiaofan could only respond. With a few leaps, he quickly disappeared into the night. Cini thought for a moment before walking in another direction. Night. 100 Herbs building sent off the last customer and was about to close the door when a man in a black cloak appeared in front of the door. The servant instinctively said, We're closed today. Sir, please come again tomorrow. The man in front of the door said calmly, I'm here to see Yu Ling. In Xiling City, there weren't many people who dared to call 100 Herbs Building's manager Yu Ling by his name. The servant was shocked and hurriedly raised his head. However, the person was completely hidden in a cloak and even had a hood on his head. His figure and appearance couldn't be recognized at all. A trace of vigilance arose in the servant's heart. You are, please come up. Yu Ling, who was standing on the second floor, shouted down. The servant hurriedly put on a smile. Please come up. The man's footsteps moved slightly. Before anyone could see how he moved, he had already passed the servant and went up the stairs. The manservant raised his head in shock. You may leave first. Yu Ling instructed. The servant knew that he shouldn't stay any longer, so he hurriedly left. On the second floor, Yu Ling led him to a private room. After closing the doors and windows, the two men faced each other. Yu Ling sat down leisurely and smiled. You haven't come to my place for a few years. Why are you suddenly interested today? The man opposite him took off his hood. It was Cini, who had just left the palace. His expression was calm as he said concisely, I'll join forces with you. A hint of surprise flashed across Yu Ling's eyes. Join forces? You? With me? Cini looked at him quietly. Someone is investigating His Highness's identity. I need to borrow your men. Yu Ling naturally understood that His Highness was Chu Luiyue. He asked without batting an eyelid. My men aren't cheap. Cini suddenly smiled. Isn't it only right for His Highness the Holy Sun's men to do this? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1295. Yu Ling's expression finally changed. When did you find out? Cini said calmly. That's not important. What's important is that I already know. Now, let me ask you one last time. Are you going to lend this person to me or not? The two of them stared at each other as the air froze. It was a silent confrontation. Finally, Yu Ling broke the silence. This matter is important, so of course I have to lend him. Just ask for as much as you want. A satisfied smile appeared on Cini's face. Thank you. The tense atmosphere between the two of them quietly dissipated. After finalizing some details, the cooperation between the two of them was officially completed. It only took a total of 15 minutes. Cini stood up. Thank you for your help. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Wait. Yu Ling stopped him, still very curious. What else, do you know? Even Chu Luiyue didn't know that he was the Holy Sun's man, but Cini, the leader of the 13 Yu, knew. This was too strange. Yu Ling was puzzled. Cini's gaze seemed to see through everything, so he couldn't help but suspect that Cini knew many secrets. Cini stopped in his tracks and turned his head slightly. More than you think. With that, he left. Yu Ling opened his mouth, but he realized that he had already left. Immortal Water Mausoleum. In the room, Jiang Jiwan looked at the letter in her hand in disbelief. She knew every word on it, but after connecting them together, she couldn't understand it at all. Annihilation, consecutive assassinations, no survivors, what does this mean? They clearly sent the most outstanding subordinates of the Jiang family, so how did they all die in a small empire Yaochen? Not only did they not find out any information, but they also lost so many people. Because of her anger, her body trembled slightly. Then, she suddenly stood up and swept all the teacups and other things on the table to the ground. Crackle. Ziyuan, what are you doing? Jiang Hetian, who had just walked to the door, was caught off guard by this scene and immediately shouted to stop. Seeing the mess on the floor and the angry and resentful Jiang Jiwan, he first turned around and gave the servants a look. The servants tactfully lowered their eyes and left, carefully closing the door. Jiang Hetian strode over to him. What happened? Why are you so angry? As he spoke, he noticed the letter in Jiang Jiwan's hand. He immediately took it and opened it. It was fine if he didn't look, but when he did, his expression changed instantly. How could this be? Because of the shock, his voice became sharp. Jiang Jiwan's eyes were bloodshot. She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. I knew there was something fishy going on. That small empire Yaochen, where even rank 9 warriors are rare, how can they be a match for our people? There must be someone guarding against us in the dark. Most likely, it was that B*TCH. Other than her, who else could it be? Previously, it didn't seem simple, but now it seemed like it was true. If it wasn't for her guilty conscience, why would she do this? Jiang Hetian read the letter over and over again, his brows tightly knitted together. Whether it's her or not, it doesn't matter. What's important is that this proves that she's not as weak as the rumors said. Moreover, from the content of this letter, it seems that there are 2 parties secretly protecting her. The people behind these 2 parties are worthy of consideration. Jiang Jiwan gritted her teeth and suddenly looked at him. Father, we were careless before and ended up like this. This time, let's send more people. Moreover, he had to choose a stronger one. I don't believe they can do this again. Go again? Jiang Hetian didn't agree with her suggestion. Ziyuan, our losses this time are already very serious. If we send more people and the same thing happens again, what should we do? You have to know that some of the people here are of high status. How should I explain this to the family? He was the patriarch and had a lot of power, but he had a lot of things to take care of and a lot of responsibilities to bear. The casualties this time could be covered up with a random excuse, but what if it happened again? Because this matter was extremely private, he had sent a group of people he trusted the most to handle it. After this battle, they had lost so many people at once. He was also very distressed. Father, what do you mean by this? Are we just going to give up and stop investigating? Jiang Jiwan couldn't believe it. We've suffered such a big loss, and you're just going to let it go? Father doesn't mean that. Ziyuan, you can't just look at what's in front of you. You have to consider the overall situation. Jiang Hetian advised earnestly. They're in the light while we're in the dark, and we were completely wiped out in the first time. This is enough to prove that this place is not to be trifled with. I think it's better to investigate first and find out the details of the other party. Jiang Jiwan sneered. Find out the details of the other party? Wasn't that what the first batch of people were supposed to do? What happened in the end? Jiang Hetian was speechless. Seeing Jiang Jiwan's firm attitude, he put away the letter and said in a deep voice, You can't be willful about this matter. You have to listen to Father. Let's get through this period first. We'll talk about the rest later. Besides, you've been at home for a long time. It's time to go back to the academy, right? Jiang Jiwan wanted to refute the first half of the sentence, but when she heard the second half, she was suddenly speechless. She turned her head and said with her usual arrogant and willful voice, I don't want to go back. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 1296. What did you say? Jiang Hetian's face turned cold. No matter how angry you are, it's been a long time. Haven't you calmed down yet? I've asked you several times before, and you always said that you didn't want to go back. If you continue to be like this, are you not going to go back in the future? When he asked the last question, his voice had already become stern. Jiang Jiwan's heart trembled. Knowing that he was really angry, she couldn't help but feel a little afraid. But at the same time, the evil fire in her heart also emerged. I just don't want to go back. If you ask me again, I'll give the same answer. She knew that after going back, what awaited her would be endless ridicule and ridicule. Jiang Hetian took a deep breath. Ziyuan, don't be stubborn. I'll keep a close eye on things here in the future. You go back to the school first. Don't let Elder Danqing and the others wait for you. Jiang Jiwan didn't speak. Obviously, she was still resisting. Jiang Hetian's patience was gradually running out. He didn't understand. His precious daughter used to be considerate, intelligent, and generous. How did she become like this in the blink of an eye? Ziyuan, I'll ask you one last time. Have you thought it through? Are you really not going back? Jiang Hetian's tone was gloomy. Jiang Jiwan was still a little afraid in her heart. She softened her attitude and shed 2 lines of clear tears of grievance. Dad, it's not that I don't want to go back, but they've really gone too far. Then, Jiang Jiwan told Jiang Hetian what had happened in the school while crying. Of course, there was no lack of embellishment and distortion in the middle. In Jiang Hetian's ears, it was as if the whole world was against his daughter. He was distressed. He couldn't vent the anger that had accumulated just now. After a long silence, he said, Ziyuan, I know you've been wronged, but it wasn't easy for you to get into Lingxiao College. It's also a big part of your capital. If you leave Lingxiao College, what will they say about you? Have you thought about it? Jiang Jiwan's expression froze. The position of Yuntian Tower's princess consort has already fallen into the hands of others. Now you don't have much of an advantage. Don't you understand? Seeing that Jiang Jiwan finally began to waver, Jiang Hetian softened his tone. Father was wrong just now. I shouldn't have been so anxious with you. But I'm doing this for your own good. You know it best, don't you? Compared to everything you can get when you go back, what is being talked about in secret? The last sentence finally made Jiang Jiwan change her mind. She wiped her tears, but her eyes were still filled with anger. Father is right, your daughter is too short-sighted. It's best that you can think clearly. Jiang Hetian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Also, if you go back now, you can still make it to the Great Desolate North. The northern region of the Great Desolate Land? Not bad. Father has been busy dealing with the matters in the mansion for the past 2 days, so I didn't have time to tell you. Then, Jiang Hetian explained the relevant information to Jiang Jiwan in detail. It's a pity that our mausoleum of immortal water is not a first-class family, so we don't have the right to go. But as long as you go back to Lingxiao College, you can go with the elders. Jiang Hetian's eyes seemed to sparkle with excitement. Ziyuan, that's one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. As long as they could get some benefits from it, it would be worth it. Jiang Jiwan was also a little restless. After hesitating for a moment, she finally nodded as if she had made up her mind. I'll go back now. Lingxiao College. Chu Luyue watched as the last small Xian formation was slowly swallowed by the light of the larger Xian formation. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. 10 days had passed, and she had already deciphered half of the Xian formation. And the further she went, the smoother her progress became. It shouldn't be long before she could completely decipher it. Although deciphering a Xian formation didn't mean that she could cast a Xian formation of the same level, it was still a good start. This proved that the cultivator had the corresponding potential. Just like now, Chu Luiyue was a level 9 Xian master. After deciphering this Xian formation, she was closer to breaking through to the next level. She closed her eyes and carefully recalled the scene just now in her mind. After confirming that every step was correct, she got up and walked outside. When she reached the door, she habitually glanced to the side. Rong Xiao hadn't returned yet. A trace of doubt flashed through her eyes. Dugu Maobao had said that Rong Xiao would come back about half a month later. But now it was almost time, and Rong Xiao was still nowhere to be seen. For some reason, she felt a little uneasy in her heart. But this feeling was fleeting, and Chu Luiyue didn't catch it. Chu Yu. Zhuosheng and the other two were already waiting for her outside the barrier. Chu Luiyue put away her thoughts and walked outside. Seeing the three of them ready to go, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Today is just the qualifiers. Why are you guys so nervous? Zhuosheng couldn't help but say, of course I'm nervous. Aren't you afraid of being eliminated at all? If you miss this opportunity, you might not be able to see a sacred artifact again in your life. Chu Luiyue thought to herself. Not to mention other things, I still have a chance for this. Just do your best later. This is much more useful than scratching your ears and cheeks nervously. Luo Shishir and Luo Yanming couldn't help but laugh out loud. The originally tense atmosphere also relaxed a lot. Luo Shishir smiled gently. Chu Yu has a point. Let's go now. Chu Luiyue nodded, and the four of them flew in the direction of the East Emperor Bell Tower. After flying for a distance, Chu Luiyue subconsciously turned her head and looked at Thousand Wine Mountain. Chu Yu, what are you looking at? Zhuosheng followed her gaze and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Why you're not thinking of going to Thousand Wine Mountain again, are you? Nothing good happened every time this guy went there, causing them to be traumatized. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. That's not it. I'm just thinking, it's been so long, why hasn't Thousand Wine Mountain opened yet? Ah, you're talking about that. Zhuosheng immediately understood and became interested. Actually, everyone is secretly thinking about it. Didn't Elder Bo Yen say that it would be closed for a month? It's almost been a month and a half, and there's been no movement. Many people are very curious. Thousand Wine Mountain is an extremely important place in the academy. This time, the elders should be doing this because of some considerations, right? Luo Shishir guessed. But it doesn't affect us much anyway, so there's no need to pay too much attention to it. We just have to wait patiently. Maybe it will open soon. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment and smiled. You're right. Many students had already gathered below the East Emperor Bell. At a glance, it was a vast expanse of black. As soon as Chu Luiyue and the others arrived, the crowd instantly quieted down. Many people looked over with fervent eyes. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1297. This atmosphere. Why does it feel so wrong? Chu Yu, you're here. A girl who looked to be in her teens suddenly took a few steps forward and walked in front of Chu Luiyue with a smile. She was wearing a bright yellow dress and a buyao of the same color on her head. She had an oval face and delicate facial features. She was very beautiful. However, there was a hint of shrewdness in her eyes, which let people know that she was not as unsophisticated as she seemed on the surface. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched. My name is Liao Shuiqing. I came to the academy 3 months earlier than you. You can just call me Qingqing. The girl in front of him did not seem to be embarrassed by Chu Luiyue's unfamiliar gaze. Instead, she introduced herself very generously and even had a hint of intimacy. Luo Shishir, who was standing beside Chu Luiyue, saw this and felt a faint sense of annoyance in her heart. However, she did not show this emotion on her face. As a noble girl from a first-rate family, she still had this kind of cultivation. I heard that you're also planning to go to the northern border of the Great Desolate Land this time? Have you formed a team yet? Can I be in the same group as you? As Liao Shuiqing spoke, she moved closer to Chu Luyue. A strong and excessive fragrance of cosmetics rushed to the tip of Chu Luyue's nose, almost choking him. Recently, she had either been collecting medicine in the Medicine Wind Valley or refining pills in the Jiuheng Mountain. She had been immersed in a faint bitter medicinal fragrance all day long. Suddenly changing this, she felt very uncomfortable. She restrained her expression and took half a step back without batting an eyelid. She smiled faintly. I appreciate Senior Sister Liao's kindness, but I've already chosen the people in the same group. As she spoke, she deliberately emphasized. It's the 3 people who came with me. I thought it was very obvious, but I didn't expect Senior Sister Liao to not notice. The smile on Liao Shuiqing's face suddenly disappeared. She crossed her arms in front of her and shrugged. Then, she quickly glanced behind Chu Luyue. Ah. Is that so? I thought you were going to team up with Senior Rongxiu. What's wrong? Didn't he come with you today? It turned out that they were here for this. Chu Luyue raised his eyebrows slightly. She didn't need to look up to know how many pairs of eyes were staring at her. Of course, they were all waiting for her answer. Senior brother Rongxiu has no intention of participating in this mission. Chu Luyue replied slowly. Many people instantly looked disappointed. After a moment of silence, some whispers could be heard. As expected. I told you he wouldn't come, yes. Senior brother Rongxiu has already left the academy for several years, how could he still be with us? Even if he is interested in that thing, with his identity as the holy son of the Yuntian Tower, he can still go. Sigh, what a pity. I originally thought that even if we can't team up, we can still go together. Now it seems that there is no chance. Some people quietly dispersed. Many people retracted their gazes. Obviously, without Rongxiu's support, Chu Luyue wasn't very valuable in their eyes. Even Liao Shuiqing couldn't hide her disappointment. However, she still maintained a decent expression on her face. She smiled at Chu Luyue and said as if she was wronged and acting coquettishly. Ah, it seems that I won't have a chance to spar with you this time. Then. Next time, how about it? Oh right, I forgot to mention that I am also a celestial physician. I just broke through to the 9th grade half a year ago. I heard that junior brother Chu Yu is only 16 years old. Compared to junior brother Chu Yu, you are really lacking. If it was a teenager who met such a passionate and cheerful beautiful girl, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. She asked you out, but the reason was fair and square. How could you have the nerve to refuse? Luo Shishir felt more and more disgusted with her. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning in her chest. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at Chu Luyue. Chu Yu, we should go over. Liao Shuiqing glanced at her. Chu Luyue nodded and replied politely to Liao Shuiqing. Senior Sister Liao, you flatter us. We still have something to do, so we'll take our leave first. After saying that, he nodded slightly and walked inside without waiting for Liao Shuiqing to say anything. Luo Shishir and the other 2 followed closely behind. After walking for a while, Zhuosheng couldn't help but ask. Shishir, why do you seem so angry? Did that Liao Shuiqing offend you? Luo Shishir's ears immediately turned red. No, I just feel that. I feel that, she seems to be targeting us. We all came together, but she still asked that. She clearly did it on purpose. Zhuosheng still felt that something was wrong. It's not the first time we've met such people. In the past, you couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. Today, why? Sigh, I can't say it either. Luo Shishir hurriedly said. Even a clay figurine has a temper. I just feel that it's not good for her to be like this. You're thinking too much. Zhuosheng wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by Luo Yanming. I heard that the number of people in the team is not fixed. If there are suitable people, we can also pull them over. However, the prerequisite is that we have to pass today's test first. The elders are going to screen all the people who want to go to the northern border of the primeval world today. Only those who pass can go with the main group of the academy. Those who are eliminated can only stay in the academy. After being interrupted by Luo Yanming, Zhuosheng didn't ask any more questions. Luo Shishir couldn't help but sneak a glance at Chu Luyue before quickly retracting her gaze. Luo Yanming saw it clearly from the side and couldn't help but shake her head. It seems that fourth brother was right. Shishir really has some feelings for Chu Yu, but Chu Yu seems to be indifferent. I don't know if he really doesn't know or if he's pretending not to know. Luo Yanming thought in her heart, when there's time, I'll have to probe them separately. Chu Luyue walked at the front and took the lead in the qualification check. The elder in charge was an acquaintance, Elder Wensi. Elder Wensi wasn't surprised to see him. He raised his chin, take out the black jade token. Chu Luyue handed it over with both hands. Elder Wensi touched his green jade token with it. Chu Luyue saw a few lines of words appear on his black jade token. It seemed to be related to her current level of strength. Hiss! Elder Wensi sucked in a breath of cold air, then suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Luyue suspiciously. When did this kid break through to this realm? I didn't hear any news at all. Those lines of words quickly disappeared. Chu Luyue couldn't help but ask Elder Wensi, am I considered qualified? Elder Wensi wanted to knock her head with the token. Asking the obvious. Yes. If she didn't even pass this, then a large number of people in the academy would be stuck. Chu Luyue smiled. Thank you, Elder Wensi. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1298. At this moment, there was a small commotion in the crowd. Chu Luyue looked up and saw a familiar face. Jiang Jiwan. She actually came back at this time. Chu Luyue narrowed his eyes. Ziyuan, you're finally back. Liang Xiaoxiao was chatting happily with a few people. When she saw Jiang Jiwan come back, a trace of surprise flashed across her eyes, and then she quickly greeted her with a smile. We thought you weren't coming. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips and smiled. I've been at home for a while. If I didn't come back, I would have been left behind in my studies. Liang Xiaoxiao smiled and said, you came back at the right time. Have you seen the mission list? Today is the day to select the candidates to go to the northern region of the Untainted Land. If you came back 2 days later, you wouldn't be able to make it. Jiang Jiwan nodded, I heard about it. It seems that we're going in a team. I remember that when the mission list was released last time, we acted together. I didn't expect that we would have to go so far this time. The smile on Liang Xiaoxiao's face suddenly became a little awkward. This. Ziyuan, you didn't say that you were coming back. I've already formed a team with others. It's not appropriate to kick someone out at the last minute. Only then did Jiang Ziyuan realize something, and her face stiffened. But don't worry, even if we're not in the same team, we can still go together. Liang Xiaoxiao glanced at her cautiously. Ziyuan, you're not angry with me, are you? Jiang Jiwan suppressed the anger in her heart and forced a smile. Why would I be? I know that I came back suddenly, and you've already formed a team. There's nothing I can do. It's okay, I'll find someone else. With that, she looked around and then walked in a certain direction. There were still many people around, so Jiang Jiwan had to maintain her expression. But in her heart, she had already developed disgust and resentment towards Liang Xiaoxiao. On the surface, Liang Xiaoxiao looked enthusiastic, but her words and actions revealed her rejection. Obviously, Liang Xiaoxiao had already decided to alienate her. Just because she lost to Lin Qifei and made a slip of the tongue? No matter what the reason was, she had seen through it. A few years of friendship was not worth mentioning at all. Liang Xiaoxiao looked at her back and crossed her arms. A smile appeared on her delicate and seductive face. Xiaoxiao, the number of people in each team is not fixed. Even if there is one more person, it doesn't matter. Why are you? A woman at the side couldn't help but come over and whisper. Liang Xiaoxiao raised her eyebrows and looked at her. What about you and her? As long as you're willing, we can do anything. No, forget it. The woman shrunk her neck and hurriedly refused. Another young man chuckled and said, actually, Xiaoxiao is doing this for the good of all of us. Ziyuan. Everything else is actually quite good, but she seems to be out of it recently. What if something happens to her when she's in a trance? We can't afford it. In fact, these words were a little pompous. Jiang Jiwan's condition was bad before she left the academy. For her to bring it up now, it was obvious that she was just looking for an excuse. In fact, because of the previous incident, Jiang Jiwan's image in the academy had plummeted. Many people felt that she was two-faced and were unwilling to be with her. Furthermore, based on her behavior, she might have offended Rongxiu long ago. No one wanted to take the risk of standing on the opposite side of Rongxiu. Jiang Jiwan might be outstanding, but she wasn't the only girl like her in the academy. There were plenty of noble ladies with good backgrounds, good looks, and good talent in the academy. There was no need to keep chasing after her. Liang Xiaoxiao tucked her fringe behind her ear and turned around. Everyone has their own destiny. Let's go about our own business first. Jiang Jiwan looked for a few more people, but without exception, they were all rejected with various reasons. The smile on her face became harder and harder, and the anger in her heart burned more and more fiercely. How long has it been? She had only left the academy for a short period of time, and such a huge change had happened. These people used to chase after her, but now they all avoided her like a poisonous scorpion. Even those who were once the closest to her had now abandoned her without any hesitation. After being rejected again, Jiang Jiwan clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Her face burned as if she had been slapped a few times. She had never been ostracized like this in Lingxiao College. This situation was worse than she had expected. She wanted to find a hole to hide in right now. I really didn't expect that Jiang Jiwan would have such a day. Zhuosheng pursed his lips. Thinking back to when she first came, she was quite popular in the academy. Isn't it because she did something wrong? Luo Yanming said lightly. Chu Luiyue looked for a while, then retracted his gaze. Jiang Jiwan was too impatient. Such a person was really nothing to worry about. Thousand Wine Mountain. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Ouyang stood at the top of the mountain, looking at the spring with furrowed brows. What the hell is going on? After a while, Elder Ouyang spoke in a low voice. It has been so long, but the spring still hasn't recovered. Actually, half a month ago, they had already restored everything in Thousand Wine Mountain to normal. But because they all came at night, they only found out that there was something wrong with the spring during the day. It was no longer gushing with spring water. In the past, spring water would gush out continuously during the day and flow down. But now, it had stopped. They came every day to look, but the results were the same every day. Elder Bo Yen walked down the mountain. Call Chu Yu over. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1299. When she saw Elder Ouyang heading straight for her, Chu Luiyue had a bad premonition. Sure enough, after they met, Elder Ouyang only said a few words concisely. Chu Yu, follow me. Everyone's attention was attracted by this sudden scene. Many people were curious and surprised. Elder Ouyang was a weapon refiner and rarely came out. Why did he suddenly look for Chu Yu? Chu Luyue paused. May I know why Elder Ouyang is looking for me? Elder Ouyang stared at her with an unfathomable gaze, as if he was considering whether her blank expression was real or fake. You'll know later. With that, Elder Ouyang turned and left. Chu Luyue was about to follow when Luo Shishir couldn't help but tug at her. Chu Yu, she felt that something was amiss. Chu Luyue shook her head. Don't worry. I'll be back soon. With that, she quickly followed Elder Ouyang's footsteps and left together. Only the onlookers were left looking at each other. Chu Luyue followed Elder Ouyang to the foot of Thousand Wine Mountain. Elder Bo Yen was standing with his hands behind his back. Chu Luyue's heart skipped a beat. As Thousand Wine Mountain had been closed recently, there were basically no people who came here. At this moment, there were only Chu Luyue and the other two here. Chu Yu. Elder Bo Yen saw him and spoke first. Chu Luyue immediately went forward. Elder Bo Yen, why are you looking for me? Elder Bo Yen looked at her with a sharp gaze, as if he wanted to look into her heart. What did you promise before? Chu Luyue was confused, as if she didn't understand what was going on. Elder Bo Yen, what are you talking about? Elder Bo Yen snorted coldly. Don't say that the situation at Thousand Wine Mountain has nothing to do with you. This time, Chu Luyue really didn't know what Elder Bo Yen was referring to. She vaguely guessed that it might have something to do with Dumpling, but she didn't know the specifics. Seeing that Chu Luyue's expression did not seem to be fake, Elder Bo Yan's heart began to beat faster. Could it really have nothing to do with this brat? However, it was only after Chu Yu caused a ruckus at Thousand Wine Mountain that the spring became like this. This student is slow-witted, please enlighten me, Elder Bo Yen. Chu Luyue asked cautiously. Elder Bo Yen stared at her and did not speak for a long while. The spring was of great importance. Now that it had suddenly become like this, it could not be easily leaked. How could he tell Chu Yu directly? Thus, the two sides entered a stalemate. Elder Ouyang couldn't stand it anymore and said, Chu Yu, when you were refining the artifact spirit that day, didn't you notice anything unusual? Maybe it wasn't Chu Yu's problem? Chu Luyue shook his head. At that time, all of this student's attention was focused on that and had no time to care about anything else. That was true. Elder Ouyang and Elder Ouyang looked at each other, feeling a little worried. Bo Yen, Ouyang, you're looking for me. At this moment, a low and powerful laughter broke the silence. It was Shang Yusen. The two of them were smiling and seemed to be in a good mood. However, when he saw the three of them, he realized that something was amiss. Shang Yusen retracted the smile on his face and asked seriously, what's wrong? Ouyang, bring him up. Elder Bo Yen said. Elder Ouyang nodded and then brought the confused Shang Yusen into Thousand Wine Mountain again. After the two of them left, only Elder Bo Yen and Chu Luyue were left staring at each other. Chu Yu, if you tell us the truth now, we can reduce your punishment. Elder Bo Yen said with a heavy heart. Chu Luyue was now even more certain that there was a problem with the spring in Thousand Wine Mountain, but Dumpling was not exposed. Otherwise, Elder Bo Yen wouldn't have to test her so many times. Thus, she also refused to let go of the matter. This student really doesn't understand, please, give me some hints. Elder Bo Yen was so angry that his heart choked. He could tell that Chu Yu didn't fall for his tricks at all. Although this kid was only 16 or 17 years old and looked harmless to humans and animals, he was actually very mature and experienced, making him difficult to fathom. After all, he was brought out by Rong Xiao and was as troublesome as him. Elder Bo Yan's expression became dangerous. Only the three of you were present at Thousand Wine Mountain that day. This matter must have something to do with one of you. Which of the three of you do you think it is? Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and smiled bitterly. This student doesn't even know what happened, so how can I admit it? Are you sure it's me? Of course. Elder Bo Yan's expression couldn't be clearer. Ouyang and Shang Yusen knew how important the spring was and definitely wouldn't do anything. The only possibility, isn't it, Chu Yu? Everything will be clear when they come down. Chu Luiyue glanced at the mountain. She couldn't see anything through the barrier, but she could vaguely feel that Dumpling's condition wasn't bad. After a human and a magical beast formed a contract, there would be a subtle connection between them. After Dumpling stayed here, she seemed to have entered a stable and calm state. This was also one of the reasons why she felt slightly more at ease. Dumpling had already stayed inside for more than the month that the legendary three-eyed eagle said, and she didn't know when she would come out. Bo Yan. After a while, Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yan returned. Elder Bo Yan looked over and saw that Elder Ouyang's expression was a little strange. He frowned. What's wrong? What did you find out? Elder Ouyang glanced at Chu Luiyue. Elder Bo Yan said in a deep voice. Chu Yu, are you still not going to admit it? Before Chu Luiyue could say anything, she heard Elder Ouyang hurriedly say from the side. Chu Yu isn't to blame for this. What? A trace of shock flashed across Elder Bo Yan's face. Afraid that he would misunderstand, Elder Ouyang hurriedly explained. Then. All right. All right? Elder Bo Yan was stunned for a moment, then he immediately understood what he meant. You'll know when you go up. In front of Chu Luiyue, Elder Ouyang couldn't be too direct. How could he explain this? An hour ago, when he and Bo Yan went up, the spring was still a pool of stagnant water. In the end, when he and Shang Yusen went over, they saw that the spring had already recovered. Hearing him say this, Elder Bo Yan didn't believe it and went up the mountain. After a while, he returned with an indescribable expression on his face. Shang Yusen couldn't help but laugh. Hey, it's clearly nothing, why are you so nervous? You called Chu Yu over before you even found out, look at how scared the child is. Ever since Chu Luiyue showed him the Scarlet Heaven Sword, Shang Yusen's attitude towards Chu Luiyue was extremely good. At this moment, he also stood up to speak up for him. Elder Bo Yan and Elder Ouyang looked at each other in confusion. Could it be, it really had nothing to do with him? Forget it, you can go back. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1300. That student will go back first. Chu Luiyue bowed respectfully and left. She did not look back as she left. Looking at her receding figure, the remaining three elders had different expressions on their faces. Bo Yan, it's not appropriate for you to do this. Shang Yusen touched his chin. What if this child is traumatized? Elder Bo Yan snorted. He's not that weak. But you shouldn't have come to such a conclusion when you're not sure. Shang Yusen's expression became more serious. Elder Bo Yan was startled, then shook his head. I'm in the wrong. Actually, you can't blame Bo Yan entirely. Yusen, you don't know, but during that period of time, there was no movement in the spring. Bo Yan and I observed for a long time before we decided to ask Chu Yu. Who knew that when you came today, it actually, Elder Ouyang frowned, he could not figure it out. Maybe it was because Chu Yu was refining the weapon soul, which affected it a little. But now that it's recovered, you don't have to worry too much. Although Shang Yusen had not been here for a long time, he believed that Ouyang was telling the truth. After thinking about it, they were still too concerned, even a little too much. Elder Bo Yan stroked his beard and sighed helplessly. If not for that kid always doing things, I wouldn't. Shang Yusen choked, he felt that it made sense. Since all the problems have been solved, there's no need to be so nervous. If you're still worried, just observe for a few more days. Elder Bo Yen nodded. Then let's wait until the day we go to the north. You're going too? Shang Yusen was surprised. You're not staying in the academy? When the dean was not around, Elder Bo Yen had always been in charge of the academy. Even if there was something, he would send the other elders out. This time, Elder Bo Yen actually wanted to lead someone personally. It was really surprising. This is a matter of great importance, and everyone is vying for supremacy. It's safer for me to go. Also. Elder Bo Yen frowned. This time, we might be able to find the dean's whereabouts. Chu Luiyue once again returned to the Green Darkness Square. Many people looked over curiously with different expressions. Chu Luiyue's expression was calm. He ignored all of them and walked straight back to Luo Shishir and the others. Only then did he realize that there was something wrong with their expressions. What's going on? Chu Luiyue asked curiously. Zhuo Sheng sighed heavily. I didn't get chosen. Luo Yanming said, and me. Chu Luiyue was very surprised. Where's Shishir? Luo Shishir pursed her lips. I've tried. But. However, she couldn't bring herself to be happy about this outcome. Their original plan was for the four of them to go together, but now it was definitely impossible. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. No wonder the atmosphere was so gloomy. Hey! Actually, it's not a big deal. Previously, I felt that I might not have made it. There are so many outstanding students in the academy, it's normal that I didn't make it. Zhuo Sheng was the first to get excited. He looked at Chu Luiyue and grinned. Chu Yu, you have to perform well this time. Do your best for your brother. I'm still waiting to bask in your glory when you come back. It was true that he was disappointed and regretful, but the outcome was already out, so it was useless to be sad. Although Zhuo Sheng was usually carefree, there was one advantage to this: he was big-hearted. After being sad, he still liked to eat and drink, and he wouldn't take it to heart. Such a person lived a more open and comfortable life. Luo Yanming sighed in his heart. He was actually still a little upset, but there were more important things that were worth his attention. Chu Yu, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Shishir in the future. She rarely went out before, so there are many things that she doesn't know. If she causes you trouble. That's for sure. Chu Luiyue interrupted him with a smile and said seriously. Shishir is my friend, so I'll naturally protect her. Only then did Luo Yanming feel relieved. I'll go with you. At this moment, someone suddenly walked over from the side. Fourth brother. Luo Shishir and the other two were surprised to see Luo Yanlin, especially Luo Shishir. She took a few steps forward, grabbed his arm, and asked, Fourth brother, are you going too? I've never heard him mention it before. Luo Yanlin laughed. I should be the one asking you this. You've only been here for a few months. You dare to take such a big risk. I've already discussed it with a few friends. Shishir, you and Chu Yu can come with us. Luo Shishir looked at Chu Luiyue inquisitively. Luo Yanlin made another bet in his heart. Thank you, senior brother Luo. Chu Luiyue smiled and cupped his hands. Luo Yanlin didn't want to talk to her anymore, but for the sake of his sister's face, he could only say, the academy is planning to set off tomorrow. You guys go back and prepare today. Yes. Chu Luiyue went straight back to Mount Jiuheng. It wasn't until she entered the room and locked the doors and windows that she pressed one hand on her chest and let out a long breath. Fortunately, it was scary but not dangerous. If she had done anything wrong today, she probably wouldn't have been able to come back. You still know how to be afraid? Dugu Maobao's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Only then did she see that Dugu Maobao was already in the room. His strength was much higher than Chu Liuyue's. It was easy for him to hide his tracks and aura in front of her. "Big baby, you scared me." Chu Liyue closed her eyes and calmed her wild heartbeat. Then, she froze and looked at the opposite side suspiciously. You know? Dugu Mabao didn't say anything. He only raised his hand and threw something over. Chu Liyue caught it subconsciously. Smack! It was soft and wet to the touch. Chu Liyue took a closer look, and the corner of her eyes twitched violently. Tuan, dumpling. This red palm-sized lump, if it wasn't dumpling, who else could it be? However, at this moment, it seemed to be sleeping. Its head was buried in one of its wings, and no matter how Dugu Mabao swung it around, it didn't show any signs of waking up. Its body was covered in water, and its fluffy feathers were stuck tightly to its body. It looked a little bald. Of course, there was a more direct word to describe it: ugly. Other than the occasional flash of silver lightning on its body, it looked a little unusual. Chu Liyue didn't want to recognize this as her contracted magical beast. It soaked in the spring for too long and got drunk. Dugu Mabao said coldly. Chu Liyue was speechless. Normal people won't get drunk after drinking the spring water, but magical beasts can't avoid it if they drink too much. Not to mention, it swallowed so much Tianlei's power. Dugu Mabao raised its eyes slightly and looked at Chu Liyue. Do you know how much Tianlei's power accumulated in the spring for years has been consumed by it? If I didn't fish it out in time, who knows how long it would have slept there. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1301. Every time Dugu Mabao said a word, Chu Liyue's heart would beat violently. In the end, her face turned slightly hot, and a rare trace of embarrassment appeared on her face. Dumpling, who was in her hands, was obviously cold all over, but at this moment, it seemed to have become a hot potato. If not for the fact that it was her contracted magical beast, Chu Liyue would have really lost control and handed it over to Dugu Mabao for him to deal with. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. So, when Elder Bo Yen and the rest called me over today, it was also because of your help? Dugu Mabao snorted coldly. I've already warned you not to casually go to Thousand Wine Mountain. Did you turn a deaf ear to my words? Dabao. I knew you were the best. However, Chu Liyue couldn't hold herself back as she rushed forward and hugged him. It's all thanks to you today. Otherwise, would have been finished. Dugu Mabao's voice came out from Chu Liyue's shoulder with difficulty. It was muffled, but it was extremely dangerous. If you don't let go of me, I'll let you know what it means to be finished. Chu Liyue hurriedly let go of him. Looking closely, Dugu Mabao's hair was already messed up like a chicken's nest. Coupled with his cold and angry little face, it was simply perfect. Chu Liyue coughed and carefully stretched out her hands to help him comb his hair. Cough, look at your hair, it's messy. Dugu Mabao stared at her, a demonic light flashing in his purple eyes. Chu Liyue tactfully retracted her hand and explained embarrassedly. It's all my fault for not being able to stop Dumpling at that time and allowing it to run in. After that, I was busy refining my weapon spirit and forgot about it for a moment. Later on, when I thought about it, Elder Bo Yen and the others had already sealed the mountain. If you really can't do it, Chu Liyue seemed to have made up her mind. She placed Tuanzi on the table and pushed it in Dugu Mabao's direction as she reluctantly said, "You can punish me however you want." Dumpling, who was still in a drunken stupor, moved uneasily, as if she knew that she had been ruthlessly abandoned. Chu Liyue could no longer care about it. He clasped his hands together and smiled at Dugu Mabao. "Dabao, don't be angry." Dugu Mabao turned his head away. Every time he saw her like this, his heart softened easily. Definitely not this time. After calming himself down, he said, "Bo Yen is right about one thing. If you don't learn your lesson and continue to cause trouble without restraint, sooner or later you will cause trouble. Chu Luiyue looked pitiful. Then how do you want to punish me? Play chess with me, or fight with me? When he said the last few words, the corner of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. This might really not work, Dugu Mabao said coldly. For the next period of time, other than cultivating here in peace, you are not allowed to do anything else. I will set up a barrier here. You can only leave when you break it. Chu Luiyue was stunned. But the academy is leaving for the northern region of the primordial wilderness tomorrow. Dugu Mabao glanced at her. Just say that you can't go. There are so many elders and students in the academy. You're not the only one. Only then did Chu Luiyue realize that Dugu Mabao was serious. He really wanted to do this. But Chu Luiyue was a little conflicted. I've already made an appointment with them, and I've already passed the examination. If I give up just like that, she wasn't looking for any treasures or opportunities. She was purely worried. The real heavenly square cauldron was with her. The mastermind had deliberately planned such a big scheme. If she didn't go, however, Dugu Mabao's attitude was very firm. He waved his sleeve, and a huge silver Xian formation appeared in front of her. It quickly covered the entire room. Chu Luiyue wanted to persuade him again. Debao, if you want to punish me, I accept. But can you wait for me to come back? When you break this Xian formation, I naturally won't stop you. After Dugu Mabao finished speaking, his figure instantly disappeared from the room. Chu Luiyue. After sitting quietly in the room for a while, Chu Luiyue finally realized what had happened. She glanced at Dumpling, who was still sleeping on the table. At this moment, the water on its body had decreased a little. However, silver Tianlei could still be seen flashing across its body. Its pair of beautiful and cunning eyes were tightly shut. There were no signs of it waking up. Chu Luiyue rubbed her forehead. She felt that it was a little strange. She and Dugu Mabao had known each other for so long. Although he would often get angry because of her teasing, most of the time, he wouldn't really get angry. Even if he was occasionally strict, it was only when he was teaching her cultivation. However, today, his reaction was really a little off. Was it really because the secret of the spring on Thousand Wine Mountain was too important that he was acting like this? However, if that was the case, he didn't even need to intervene. He could just let Elder Bo Yen and the rest deal with her. Now, Dugu Mabao brought Dumpling out and erased those traces. However, he locked her up here, Chu Luiyue thought for a while. She kept Dumpling and tried to walk out of the door. When she walked around the room, everything was normal. Then, she pushed the door open and walked forward cautiously. After taking 20 steps, Chu Luiyue felt an invisible force blocking her path. She stopped and turned around to look at the room. She could vaguely see streaks of light flickering on the ground inside. This was the power of the Xian formation that he left behind. Chu Luiyue tried a few times. She realized that she couldn't force her way through, so she gave up. She returned to the room and closed the door and windows. She started to focus on studying the Xian formation on the ground. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1302. The night passed in the blink of an eye. The morning sun shone in through the window. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and simply lay back. Phew, Debao is determined. This Xian formation was the most difficult one she had seen so far. It was even more difficult than the one left behind by Dugu Mabao. She hadn't even cracked that one yet, let alone this one. Chu Luiyue rubbed her temples. After studying for an entire night, she didn't make any progress. She was almost certain that she wouldn't be able to get out today. Suddenly, a fluctuation came from her dantian. An idea popped up in Chu Liuyue's mind, and she summoned Tuanzi. The commotion just now had come from its body. Compared to yesterday, the number of Tianlei flashing on its body had decreased by a lot. It should have been absorbed by it bit by bit. However, its eyes were tightly shut and it still didn't show any signs of waking up. Chu Liyue picked it up and looked around carefully. Yesterday, Dumpling's entire body was wet, so she couldn't tell. Now, she realized that the color of Dumpling's feathers had become much darker than before. At a glance, it looked like a burning red flame, rich and intense. Chu Liyue remembered that it had only soaked in the spring for a short while before falling asleep for a long time. This time, she really didn't know when it would wake up. But when it wakes up this time, it should be when the power of its bloodline is completely activated, right? Thinking of this, Chu Liyue's heart finally felt a lot more comforted. Chu Yu. Chu Yu? Luo Shishir's voice came from outside. Chu Liyue sighed, turned over, packed up, and walked outside. She immediately saw Luo Shishir, who was hovering outside the barrier. Chu Yu, we should set off. Many people have already gathered at Qingming Square. Luo Shishir waved at Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue took a few steps forward and stood at a safe distance. Shishir, please help me apply for leave. Just say that I'm not feeling well and I'm afraid I won't be able to go this time. Luo Shishir was shocked. Are you sick? Is it serious? I'll help you ask the elders to come over and take a look. Chu Liyue hurriedly said, no need. It's an old problem. I've already taken some medicine. I'll be fine after resting for a while. However, in this state, he definitely could not go to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land. I'm really sorry. Luo Shishir saw that Chu Liyue's complexion was indeed a little haggard, and her heart was a little worried. However, seeing her resolute attitude, she agreed. Then I'll help you talk to the elders. You take care of yourself. If he couldn't hold on any longer, he had to seek help from the elders. Chu Liyue smiled gratefully. Thank you. Many people were shocked when they heard that Chu Liyue had left the team because she was unwell. After all, such an opportunity was extremely rare. It would be a pity to give it up. Even Elder Bo Yen was a little surprised. He asked a few more questions about Chu Liyue's situation. Elder Wanzheng was worried, so he simply went to Jiuheng Mountain himself. Chu Liyue had no choice but to explain again. She tried her best to convince Elder Wanzheng that she was fine. Because Elder Wanzheng was also going to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land this time, he left after confirming that Chu Liyue was fine. Chu Liyue finally calmed down. Although she was worried, the real heavenly square cauldron was with her, which gave Chu Liyue enough confidence. She began to focus on breaking the Xian formation. Lingshao College's team this time was huge. There were a total of more than 30 elders and more than 300 students heading to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land together. After these people left, the entire college became much quieter. However, the cultivation atmosphere was stronger than before. Many students who failed this time secretly made up their minds to work hard to become stronger and strive to not miss such an opportunity in the future. Strength was always the most powerful voice. Everything seemed to have returned to how it was before. The days of studying Xian formations alone were very boring. If it was someone else, they would probably feel very uncomfortable after a day or two. However, this was not the case for Chu Liyue. She had a good mentality. She knew that Dugu Mabao was thinking about her, so she stayed in the small space without any complaints and studied the Xian formation bit by bit. Occasionally, when she felt tired, she would choose to read the doctor's book that Elder Wanzheng had left behind. 3 days later, as if afraid that she would be bored, Dugu Mabao threw a puppet over to accompany her. Yes, the beginner stage of the 9th level. When Chu Liyue was finally able to fight evenly with this puppet, Dugu Mabao threw over a second one. In the room, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. She crossed her arms with one hand and supported her chin with the other. Her expression was serious. She looked at the complicated Xian formation on the ground and the two puppets that were ready to enter battle at any time. She fell into deep thought. Did she offend Debao in the past? 5 days later. Chu Luiyue dispelled this question. Although she did not solve the Xian formation that Debao trapped her in, she successfully solved the previous Xian formation in the process. Above level 9 Xian Master was Xian King Master. She had a faint premonition in her heart. Perhaps, before she broke through Doctor and Demigod, she would first reach a higher level above Xian Master. During this period of time, Dumpling did not make any movements and remained in a deep sleep. However, Chu Luiyue could clearly feel the huge changes in its body. This change was silent, as calm as the spring rain moistening things. However, Chu Luiyue knew that one day, this would definitely shock countless people. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1303. Remember, Love Net, in 1 second and provide you with interesting reading. The primordial north was a dangerous place in the Divine Ruins world. The extremely harsh environment and perilous checkpoints made it a barren land that countless cultivators trembled in fear at the mere mention of its name. However, because of the news that the Heavenly Square Cauldron was about to appear there, countless first-rate families and sects in the Divine Ruins world had sent people there. An intense battle was about to break out. Compared to the other families and sects, Lingxiao College did not have that many loyal people who could rush to the front to open up new territories. However, they had a huge advantage. Lingxiao College had the only teleportation formation in the Divine Ruins world that could directly lead to the primordial north. This teleportation array was personally built by the founder of the Spirit Firmament Academy 10,000 years ago, which was also the first dean. However, as time passed, the primordial north became more and more dangerous. Lingxiao College no longer sent people there, and even this teleportation formation was abandoned for a time. Unexpectedly, it came in handy this time. Inside the teleportation formation, there were bright lights floating. Compared to the other teleportation formations, it was much brighter and more spacious. Moreover, the surrounding spatial turbulence was almost impossible to feel. It was very stable inside. Some of the elders were at the front, while others were at the back to ensure the safety of the students. At first, everyone was still a little reserved and nervous. The whole place was very quiet. After a period of time, everyone gradually relaxed, and the atmosphere became much more lively. Occasionally, some people could be heard whispering. This teleportation formation is so stable. I've never seen such a powerful teleportation formation before. I heard that it was personally built by the first president. After 10,000 years, the elders of the college would regularly maintain it. Of course, it's extraordinary. Hiss. How much manpower and material resources would this require? It's shocking just thinking about it. I heard that in the entire Divine Ruins world, this is the only teleportation formation that directly leads to the primordial north. If other people want to go, they have to change locations several times. In the end, they have to walk through the Red Valley Beach before they can truly enter the primordial north. I heard that place is the burial ground of many cultivators. If I can really see the Heavenly Square Cauldron appear this time, I'm willing to suffer even more. That's one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. The 10 great saint artifacts are scattered all over the world. So far, only 5 of them have been clearly found. Moreover, they are all treasures that have been passed down for thousands of years by first-rate families and sections. As for the remaining 5, they were nowhere to be found. This is the only saint artifact that has appeared in this world in the past 1,000 years. Most importantly, it's ownerless. Sigh, I wonder who will be the biggest winner in the end and obtain this Heavenly Square Sacred Cauldron? Sure. Luo Yenlin shouted twice before Luo Sure came back to her senses. Fourth brother, what's wrong? What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? Luo Yenlin asked with a smile. Could it be that you are too nervous because you are thinking about the northern region of the wilderness? Luo Sure curled her lips and shook her head. No, Luo Yenlin raised his eyebrows. Are you thinking about Chuyu? Luo Sure's face quickly turned red. Fourth brother, what are you talking about? I didn't. Meeting Luo Yenlin's gaze that seemed to have seen through everything, Luo Sure guiltily swallowed the rest of her words. After a while, she said in a low voice, I just feel that it's a pity that he couldn't come. After all, this is a rare opportunity, and he also passed the examination. Everything was going smoothly, but he was unwell on the day of departure, so he regretfully gave up. It was truly a pity. Luo Yenlin sighed in his heart. This silly girl, she clearly liked him, but she didn't realize it. Don't worry, he is not an ordinary person. Even if he can't come this time, there will definitely be other opportunities in the future. Luo Yenlin said. Moreover, he has Rongxiu behind him. When I have time, I will have to ask Rongxiu about Chu Yu's background. If he is good in all aspects, it is not impossible to consider. Luo Sure did not know that her fourth brother had already thought so far. She nodded and said seriously, I hope that I can quickly become stronger and get a good ranking on the Azure Sky Roll as soon as possible. At the back of the crowd, Jiang Jiwan stood beside Elder Danqing in silence. She was somewhat out of place with the lively crowd in front of her. The more she listened, the more uncomfortable she felt. Those people seemed to have completely ignored her and did not care about her at all. Jiang Jiwan could still tolerate it for a day or two. However, after so much time had passed, their attitude towards her had become even worse. Especially Liang Xiaoxiao's group. She was clearly so far away from them, but she could still hear their giggles. Back then, many people wanted to curry favor with her and fawn over her in all sorts of ways. Now that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, no one was even willing to talk to her properly. If not for the fact that she wanted to go to the northern region of the primeval desolate land, she would have quit long ago. Elder Danqing looked at her a few times. How could he not know the grievances and discomfort in her heart? After all, she was his disciple, so he still felt sorry for her. Ziyuan, have you thoroughly studied the Xian formation I showed you some time ago? Jiang Jiwan hurriedly said, I'm almost done. You can't be almost done. You have to study it thoroughly. Elder Danqing said with a heavy heart. You are a martial artist and a mystic master. You are very talented in both aspects. If you want to develop in a balanced way, you naturally have to put in more effort than others. Especially the cultivation of a mystic master. You can't make do with it at all. Thank you for your teachings, master. Jiang Jiwan's face was a little hot. She had indeed neglected her cultivation during this period of time. Because she could not calm down, she had actually not looked at a Xian formation for about a month. If Elder Danqing were to test her on the spot, she would definitely fail. You have always been smart and sensible. I believe you understand some things even if I don't say them. Elder Danqing paused. I still have high hopes for you. You are already a level 9 mystic master now. If you can break through as soon as possible, you will surpass many people. In the academy or the entire Divine Ruins world, strength is the most important. Do you understand? Jiang Jiwan lowered her eyes slightly and nodded vigorously. Ziyuan understands. Also, you have been stuck in the demigod realm for some time. Take advantage of this trip to the northern region of the primeval desolate land and strive to break through in one go. Jiang Jiwan clenched her fists. Definitely. Lingxiao College. Jiuheng Mountain. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged in the room. Her expression was serious, and there was a rare hint of nervousness in her eyes. She raised her hand and drew something in the air in front of her. It was a small Xian formation. If someone was here at this moment, they would realize that this small Xian formation was extremely similar to the one quietly shining on the floor of the room. Chu Luiyue was trying to copy this Xian formation. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1304. She had tried many times before, but all of them ended in failure. However, she had never given up. Even if she was only slightly more accurate than before, she still did not feel tired. As Chu Luiyue had been in a tense state for a long time and spent a lot of energy researching Xian formations, she was actually very tired at this point, and her eyes were bloodshot. However, the feeling of being on the verge of breaking it and the urge to do so had been supporting her. Her surroundings were quiet. Chu Luiyue could even hear her own heart beating. She could hear the sound of blood flowing in her ears. Her hands started to tremble slightly. It was extremely difficult for her to forcefully construct a Xian formation of this level with her current realm. The force in her body was being consumed crazily. Her vision was also turning black, as if she was going to collapse in the next second. However, her heart was incomparably resolute. Flames seemed to be burning in her black jade-like eyes. Finally, her hand slowly landed on the last stroke. The Xian formation in front of her was completely outlined. Buzz! A subtle fluctuation spread out from the small Xian formation. Chu Luiyue's chest shook. A sweet and fishy taste instantly filled her mouth. She forcefully swallowed the blood and quickly adjusted her breathing. She urged the force in her body to surge. The Xian formation was only half complete. If she wanted to completely decipher the Xian formation, there were still important steps to take. She could not make any mistakes. Chu Luiyue concentrated and gathered all the force in her limbs and bones into her palms. Then, she poured it into the Xian formation in front of her. The light on it gradually became brighter and more dazzling. The fluctuation on it also became bigger and bigger. However, the force in her body was almost exhausted very quickly. Her previous attempts had already consumed a large amount of her strength. She was truly an arrow at the end of its flight. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment. Finally, she mobilized the divine power stored in the water droplet. A ferocious aura instantly gushed out from her body. Chu Luiyue's palms shone brightly. Following the continuous consumption of that divine power, the Xian formation in front of her finally expanded to the height of half a person. This was an octagonal Xian formation. Streams of light crisscrossed on it, forming complicated patterns. Ordinary people would feel dizzy just by looking at it. If they looked at it for too long, it was not impossible for them to faint. Chu Luiyue held his breath and extended his right hand forward, gently covering the center of the profound formation. Wang! At this moment, the Xian formation on the ground that was flickering with a lustrous radiance suddenly seemed to have sensed the summoning of some kind of power, and slowly rose up from the ground. It was smooth and resplendent, majestic and impressive. There was actually a small gap in the middle of it. Chu Luiyue's heart settled. That was the key to deciphering this Xian formation. With a light push of her palm, she pushed the small Xian formation that she had copied onto the empty space in the middle of the Xian formation. Crack! The two Xian formations merged perfectly. In the next moment, it dissipated with a bang. The light gradually dissipated. Chu Luiyue supported himself with one hand on the armrest and slowly stood up. Everything in the room had returned to normal. The Xian formation that had trapped her for several days had now disappeared without a trace. Chu Luiyue stood at the same spot for a while, then took out a pill and swallowed it. A gentle force instantly flowed down her windpipe. That feeling of exhaustion instantly eased by quite a bit. She wiped the trace of blood from the corner of her mouth. She inadvertently looked up and happened to see herself in the mirror. Her face was somewhat haggard, her lips were pale, and only her pair of eyes were bright and dazzling. Reality proved that the days of being tortured by Debeo were not in vain. She could no longer remember how many times she had sparred with Debeo on the chessboard. Every time, she would be tortured to death by him, leaving nothing behind. Every time she felt that her strength had increased, Debeo would also increase his strength to the corresponding level. In short, she was firmly suppressed every time. After a long time, Chu Luyue herself had already started to get used to it. In the beginning, she still fantasized that she could be on par with Debeo one day, but gradually, she gave up on this idea. At least in the short term, it was very unrealistic. But, she neglected one point. She was not comparable to Debeo now, but under Debeo's guidance, her strength was actually increasing rapidly every day. Compared to others, she was definitely an extraordinary existence. Just like now, she had actually silently broken through to become a Xian King Master. Chu Luyue spent about 15 minutes adjusting her state. After her body recovered a little, she walked outside. Without the restriction of the Xian formation, it seemed to have become much easier. Chu Luyue looked forward. It was evening. The sun was setting in the west, and the sky was filled with red clouds. The mountain breeze blew over, bringing with it a hint of coolness, causing her to instantly sober up. She actually broke through just like that. Chu Luyue blinked and looked at her hand, still feeling a little dazed. A subtle emotion welled up in her heart. So. I still remember so many Xian formations, she muttered softly, her eyes complicated. Just now, the moment she broke the Xian formation, the fifth crack appeared on the black pyramid in her dantian. At the same time, many memories appeared in her mind. However, there were no people or scenes in these memories. There were only incomparably exquisite Xian formations and numerous prescriptions. The things that appeared were obviously better than what she had seen before. In Chu Luyue's memory, she had never seen these things before. However, these contents appeared clearly in her mind. From these broken memories, Chu Luyue seemed to have glimpsed a corner of the past that she had forgotten. She turned her gaze and looked at the Eastern Emperor Bell Tower. Dignified, solemn, dignified. She thought of the green cloud ranking that appeared on the black wall. So, she was already a Xian King Master and a doctor. I just don't know. Is this the end? Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Meng Yi was leisurely lying down to rest. Suddenly, his ears twitched and he opened half an eye. A familiar young man's figure appeared not far away. It was Chu Yu. He made a sound of surprise and sat up. Chu Yu, why are you here today? I heard that your health isn't good, so I didn't follow Bo Yen and the others to the northern border of the great desolate land. Is your body better now? Chu Luyue turned around and smiled brightly at Elder Meng Yi. Thank you for your concern, Elder Meng Yi. This student's body is already fine. Elder Meng Yi was slightly relieved. He chuckled and waved his cattail leaf fan. Why, your body has just recovered, and you're here to pick herbs again? Chu Luyue's eyes flashed, she pursed her lips and smiled, as if she was a little embarrassed. That's right. Elder Meng Yi wouldn't think that this student is annoying, right? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1305. Huh. How could that be? Elder Meng Yi fanned himself vigorously. Don't worry, I haven't had the time to send the bill for the herbs you collected here to Wanzheng. It won't be too late to show it to him when he comes back. During this period of time, just take whatever herbs you want. As he spoke, he smacked his lips, narrowed his eyes, and said leisurely. All these years, he only accepted you as his disciple. Wouldn't he dote on you like the apple of his eye? I reckon he wants to leave all the good stuff for you. What are these herbs worth? Chu Liuyue's mouth twitched. She could hear a hint of schadenfreude in his voice. She bowed politely. Thank you, elder. With that, she walked to the side and began to pick the herbs seriously. Elder Mengyi lay back down. When he thought of Wan Zheng's expression when he came back and saw the bill, he could not help but whistle. That scene would be very exciting. Chu Luyue did not lack herbs. When Rong Xiu gave her the universe ring, there was already a lot stored in it. Later on, she obtained a lot from different channels. In addition, after entering the academy, she had come to the Medicine Wind Valley many times. She definitely had enough medicinal herbs. However, ever since she thought of those Xian formations and prescriptions, Chu Luyue felt that she was lacking a lot. In addition, she had flipped through the physician's medicine scripture during this period of time. She really needed to come here to collect more herbs. Soon, Chu Luyue picked a lot of herbs again. Unknowingly, she walked to the edge of the garden again. A faint pressure came from the front. Chu Luyue paused in her actions and looked up. The barrier of the Medicine Wind Valley was not far in front of her. The sky gradually darkened, and the barrier shone with a faint glow. An impulse suddenly rose in Chu Luyue's heart. She wanted to enter the herb garden to take a look. Ever since she confirmed her identity, she had thought of this more than once. However, it was too difficult, so she had not been able to do it. On one hand, the location of the herb garden was extremely special. It was almost impossible to enter it without attracting anyone's attention. On the other hand, she had repeatedly made mistakes in the academy. If she was caught red-handed again, it would probably cause a lot of trouble. However, it was impossible to completely suppress this thought. Instead, it became more and more obvious as time passed. Especially today, after breaking through to the mystic Imperial Master Realm, this kind of impulse surged to the peak. At this moment, she suddenly felt a gaze on her back. That was Elder Meng Ye's gaze. Chu Luyue calmly picked up a few medicinal herbs around him. He wandered around for a while and then packed up his things to settle the bill. Only then did the seemingly solid gaze gradually weaken its power. Elder Mengyi looked lazy, but he was actually very cautious and meticulous. Everything in the vast Medicine Wind Valley was under his control. Trying to do anything under his nose was simply courting death. After Chu Luyue accounted for all the medicinal ingredients, he respectfully bid farewell and left the Medicine Wind Valley. Elder Mengyi looked at her departing figure and scratched his chin with the cattail leaf fan before lying back down. By the time Chu Luyue returned to Mount Xiaofan, the sky was already completely dark. She meditated and cultivated quietly in her room, adjusting her condition to the best. Late at night, Chu Luyue opened her eyes and changed into a long black robe, covering herself up tightly. She glanced outside. The full moon was bright and clear like water. It was so quiet that only the sound of the wind passing through the mountains could be heard. She raised her hand. On her wrist, the light pink peach blossom slowly bloomed. In the next moment, her figure disappeared from the room. This was the time when the night was at its thickest. The entire academy was silent. Chu Liyue's figure appeared in a dark corner. The thick trees beside her completely covered her shadow. There was no one around. After staying in the academy for so long, Chu Luyue had already been to almost all the places where students could go. Now that she was very familiar with the entire academy's terrain, she could easily avoid the places where people would appear and take the remote paths. She looked around and confirmed the direction. Then, with a thought, she quickly left. After a few turns, Chu Luyue finally entered the Mystic Master area and arrived at the foot of a mountain very close to the center. She looked up and suddenly felt as if her heart had been hit by something. This is it. Chu Luyue said silently in her heart. This place had appeared many times in her memory and had a special meaning to her. Mount Yuheng. The mountain peak was tall and steep. On one side was a mountain range that extended downwards, and on the other was a steep cliff. At a glance, it looked as if someone had slashed down from the sky with a sword, directly splitting it into this state. On the cliff, there was an octagonal pavilion. Chu Liyue's breathing stopped. The scene that had only appeared in her mind appeared before her eyes just like that. She clenched her fists and walked forward. However, she had only taken a few steps when she felt an obscure yet powerful pressure. Chu Liyue frowned. Only then did she realize that there was a barrier around Mount Yuheng. And its level was not low. According to the scene in her memory, the medicinal garden was directly opposite Mount Yuheng, separated by a river. It was not possible to go over from Medicine Wind Valley, so this was the only way left. But she did not expect there to be a barrier here as well. Chu Liyue did not dare to move carelessly, afraid that she would accidentally cause some commotion and attract people over. If that happened, she would not be able to explain herself. However, she was extremely unwilling to give up just like that and turn around to leave. Just as Chu Liyue was worrying about this, two people's voices suddenly came from behind her. "Say, do you think the elders have arrived?" Chu Liyue was shocked. She quickly hid behind a huge rock at the side and hid her aura at the same time. Looking at the time, it should be about time. After all, our academy has a teleportation formation that allows us to go directly. Isn't it much more convenient than others? The people who spoke seemed to be two young men. They should be students of the academy. But Chu Liyue found their voices unfamiliar. She probably did not know them. That's true. Maybe not long later, they will be able to see the legendary Heavenly Square Cauldron with their own eyes. Unfortunately, we are not strong enough and do not even have the qualifications to go. Sigh. Let's cultivate diligently. There might be other opportunities in the future. In the end, it's still because we are not talented enough. Say, if we had half of Senior Rong Xiu's talent, we would be better than now, right? He has Mount Yuheng all to himself. Chu Liyue was shocked. Her body suddenly fell backward uncontrollably. Buzz! Mount Yuheng's barrier shook violently. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1306. This movement instantly alerted the two people who were talking. Who is it? Chu Liyue's heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly by something. If they found out, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. When they didn't hear a response, the two students looked at each other with solemn expressions. One of them called out loudly, "Who's there? Why are you sneaking around? Come out. Otherwise, we won't be polite." Fine beads of sweat appeared on Chu Liyue's forehead. She looked at the peach blossom on her wrist. If they got any closer, she could only swoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. It was the man who spoke who threw a short sword first. "Come out." The other person had already rushed forward. Chu Liyue gritted her teeth, circulated the force in her body, and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Chu Liyue suddenly felt that something was wrong behind her. She subconsciously looked back and instantly widened her eyes in shock. Because, behind her, Jadeite Mountain's barrier suddenly cracked open. Thud. The short sword stabbed into the rock in front of Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue steeled her heart and directly flashed in. The black figure instantly disappeared on the spot. The moment she left, one of the men had already rushed over and looked directly behind the boulder. The tense expression on his face instantly froze. The other man also followed at this moment and asked, "Who is it?" The man who came first frowned and shook his head at him. "No one. No one? How is that possible?" The man who spoke pulled out his dagger and looked behind the boulder. "I clearly felt that there was someone here just now. And there was also a fluctuation in the barrier just now, wasn't there?" But there's really no one here. I didn't see anyone escape just now. The fluctuation in the barrier has already calmed down. Then what's going on? Could it be that both of us saw wrongly? The two of them were silent for a moment and carefully looked around, but still didn't find anything unusual. This made them somewhat discouraged, and they gradually began to suspect that they had guessed wrongly. Maybe we really did make a mistake. Jadeite Mountain's enchantment is extremely sturdy. Normal people wouldn't be able to enter. One of the men whispered and shook his head. Forget it, let's go back. The two of them searched to no avail. In the end, they left regretfully and puzzledly. Hearing their footsteps getting further and further away, Chu Luyue finally exhaled slowly. She glanced back. The transparent barrier had already returned to normal, and no one could tell that someone had just passed through it. Chu Luyue looked at his own body in disbelief. She actually came in just like that? When the barrier came into contact with her, not only did it not resist, it even opened and let her in. Could it be that this barrier could sense her aura and power? Chu Luyue pondered for a moment and decided to put this matter aside for now. He raised his eyes and looked around. Soon, she found the way up the mountain according to her vague memory. She calmed herself down and walked forward. Unlike many other mountains in the academy, Jadeite Mountain was quite exquisite. Although it was steep and tall, the exquisiteness and layout of the mountain seemed to have been carefully arranged by someone. It was pleasing to the eye and very pleasing to the eye. Neatly chiseled steps extended up the mountain. Chu Luyue walked up the steps, looking at the scenery on both sides from time to time. The familiar feeling in her heart grew stronger. She had indeed been here before. Chu Luyue thought about it as she walked. With the real scene in front of her eyes, the originally blurry images gradually became clearer. Finally, Chu Luyue arrived at the top of the mountain. An antique octagonal pavilion stood beside the cliff. Inside the pavilion, there was a stone table and 2 stone stools. On the stone table, there was a chessboard, and on each side was a chess jar. Everything was exactly the same as the scene in her memory. Chu Luyue suddenly felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. She walked over step by step, and almost instinctively sat down on one of the stone stools. The chessboard was as clean as new, and the chess jar was well preserved. Everything was as if no one had ever left. Chu Luyue reached out, as if wanting to touch it. But halfway through, she hesitated and stopped. Homesickness was probably what it felt like to be close to home. The scene that she had imagined countless times finally happened, but she suddenly didn't dare to do anything, as if she was afraid that she would disturb something. A gust of wind blew over from the mountains, bringing with it an extremely faint bitter fragrance of herbs. Chu Luyue looked up. Under the bright moon, the world was clear and bright. Under the cliff, the river surged, and on the opposite side, there were layers upon layers of mountains. And in between those mountains, there was a unique scenery. It was a herb garden. A layer of barrier covered it, and from the outside, it couldn't be seen clearly. Only a vague outline could be seen. But even so, it was not hard to imagine what kind of lush scenery it was inside. Chu Luyue was a little dazed for a moment. This feeling was too familiar and too natural. For a moment, she almost thought that she had been here all this time, and had never left. Every blade of grass, every tree, every table, and every stool here was the same as before, without a speck of dust. Chu Luyue closed her eyes. After pausing for a moment, she finally got up, tipped her toes, and flew forward. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1307. The night sky was silent. Chu Luyue moved like a ghost and soon arrived at a mountain on the opposite side. Standing there, she finally saw the appearance of the herb garden surrounded by the mountains. What she saw made her hold her breath. She didn't blink, as if she was afraid of missing something. This herb garden was actually a depression in the middle of the surrounding mountains. But for some reason, its altitude was relatively high. It was basically halfway up these mountains. Vast, atmospheric, and full of vitality. This was Chu Liuyue's first impression of it. A layer of fog-like barrier completely enveloped it. Just now, when she was standing on Mount Yuheng and looking over here, Chu Liyue could only see a blurry mist because of the distance. But now that she was standing closer, it was much clearer. Chu Liyue could even vaguely see some medicinal herbs planted inside. With a single glance, she understood that the rumors she had heard from Zhong Sun back then were not false. Because the medicinal herbs she could identify were all extremely precious and rare. Even though there was a barrier between them, Chu Liyue could still smell the fragrance that was spreading out from it. It was somewhat similar to the Medicine Wind Valley, but not the same. The fragrance of the medicinal herbs was mostly bitter. However, the smell in this herb garden had a hint of sweetness. Suddenly, her gaze focused. Looking over, she saw a large number of blooming dancing lotuses. They swayed with the wind, graceful and beautiful. A trace of doubt flashed in Chu Liyue's eyes. These were all planted by her. Although she liked dancing lotuses, it was extremely troublesome to take care of them, and their flowering period was very short. According to her personality, it didn't seem like she would have the patience and energy to do such a thing. She walked a little further before she saw 2 rattan chairs by the side of the lake. Chu Liyue was slightly stunned. One of them should be hers. Then, what about the second one? Before she could figure out this question, a fluctuation suddenly came from the barrier of the herb garden. Chu Liyue was shocked. This time, she didn't touch the barrier. Why did it suddenly move? The next moment, a trace of vigilance suddenly appeared in her heart, and she quickly looked in the other direction of the herb garden. Someone opened the barrier and walked in. From the looks of it, they seemed to have come from the Medicine Wind Valley. Chu Liyue immediately retreated and hid himself. She felt that she should check the almanac before going out today. To think that he would meet so many people along the way at this time. She fixed her eyes on that person and found that person's figure was somewhat familiar. After looking carefully, she noticed that the person was actually Elder Meng Yi. At this moment, he was holding a palm leaf fan in one hand and walking barefoot into the herb garden. He walked over with familiarity, then stood beside a large patch of medicinal herbs and rolled up his sleeves and trousers. Chu Liyue suddenly guessed something and his heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, in the next moment, she saw Elder Meng Yi personally go down to take care of the medicinal herbs. Chu Liyue sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the scene in disbelief. Elder Meng Yi is helping me manage the herb garden? Elder Meng Yi was a Xian master and also a celestial physician, so he could do these things with ease. And looking at the number of herbs, it didn't seem like it was the first time he had done this. Looking at the figure who was bending over and seriously pulling out the withered medicinal herbs, Chu Liyue's emotions were very complicated. She had never imagined that she would see such a scene when she came here today. Elder Meng Yi is not only in charge of the Medicine Wind Valley, but also this herb garden? According to everyone, she had already left for several years, and even her name had almost become a taboo. She originally thought that she had been deliberately forgotten. Who would have thought? Phew, Elder Meng Yi finally finished taking care of the large patch of medicinal herbs. He straightened up, held his waist, and let out a long breath. That girl ran off to have fun by herself and left this mess to this old man. Yet, the herbs planted here were all extremely precious, and all of them needed to be taken care of. If it weren't for that girl, he wouldn't have bothered. The tip of Chu Liyue's nose twitched. Elder Meng Yi grumbled for a while, then walked to another area and repeated what he had just done. After tossing and turning for about an hour, he finally stopped. He looked around with satisfaction and clapped his hands. Let's see if I don't collect the debt from you for these few years later. With that, Elder Mengyi finally turned around and left. The barrier sealed. Everything returned to normal. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to go forward, a fluctuation suddenly came from her dantian. She was shocked and realized that the movement came from Dumpling. It seemed very unusual. It has already begun to fuse with the power of the Tianlei that it swallowed and is preparing to activate the power of its bloodline. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice came in time, calm and powerful. This process may cause a huge commotion. It's better to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, once someone discovered, Chu Luiyue's whereabouts today would definitely be discovered. Chu Luiyue frowned, then quickly nodded. I got it. She retreated without hesitation. After taking a few steps, she could not help but look back. In just a moment, she retracted her gaze, moved her body, and quickly left. The fluctuation from Dumpling's body grew stronger and stronger. Gradually, even Chu Luiyue felt that it was difficult to control. She rushed back to Mount Jiuheng as fast as she could. As soon as she entered the room, she immediately summoned Dumpling. Dumpling? Dumpling! Dumpling's eyes were still closed, and there were no signs of it waking up. The process of awakening the power of its bloodline is long and complicated. If it can't wake up in time, it's very likely that due to the power riot, whoosh! A huge black figure appeared in the room. The legendary three-eyed eagle folded its wings and stared sharply at Dumpling. You must wake it up as soon as possible and awaken the power of its bloodline on its own, and control it. In just 2 short sentences, Chu Luiyue clearly understood the danger of this matter. She looked at Dumpling, and a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. But it hasn't moved until now, and I can't wake it up no matter what. As she spoke, an even stronger invisible fluctuation spread out from Dumpling's body. Now, there was no longer any flickering silver Tianlei on its body. It was just a furry red ball lying quietly on the table, looking very obedient. If it was any other time, Chu Luiyue might be very happy to see it like this, but now, she only felt more and more worried. Continue to call it. Before that, I will help it guide the awakening power of its bloodline in its body. But, I can only help so much. In the end, it still has to rely on itself. Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth. I got it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1308. Time began to pass unendingly. In the room, Chu Luiyue kept trying to wake Dumpling up, but to no avail. But as time passed, Dumpling's aura became more and more powerful. At first, the legendary three-eyed eagle could still control the power to redirect it into its body and refine its flesh. But as Dumpling's power became more and more powerful, the legendary three-eyed eagle began to struggle. Although it was also a divine beast, and its level was not low, awakening the power of the bloodline was not something that outsiders could interfere with. Chu Luiyue tried various methods, but Dumpling remained indifferent. That pair of tightly shut eyes showed no signs of opening. Boom! A wave spread out and hit the barrier that Chu Luiyue had set up before, making a muffled sound. The barrier began to shake. Chu Luiyue rubbed her temples. According to the current pattern of Dumpling's power increasing, her barrier would be broken in about an hour. This can't go on. Chu Luiyue looked worriedly at the legendary three-eyed eagle. Is there any other way? The legendary three-eyed eagle shook its head. Only when it wakes up can it smoothly solve all these problems. Even if its kin came, it would be useless. If we let these powers flow uncontrollably in its body, I'm afraid. It did not finish its words, but Chu Luiyue knew what it meant. After thinking for a long time, she suddenly asked, "Can I help it?" A look of surprise flashed across the eyes of the legendary three-eyed eagle. What? Chu Luiyue repeated seriously, "I'm its master." We have a contractual relationship and are closely connected. It can be said that we breathe and share the same fate. Can I help it? The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment. With your help, it can naturally hold on for a while. But fundamentally, it can't, then it's decided. Chu Luyue did not wait for the legendary three-eyed eagle to finish speaking and made a prompt decision. At this time, even a little help would be good. The longer they held on, the greater their hope. As long as they could wait until Dumpling woke up, everything was not worth mentioning. Are you sure you want to do this? The legendary three-eyed eagle stared at Chu Luyue, its eyes full of disapproval and warning. You have to know that the bloodline power of the red-tailed phoenix is extremely fierce and violent. It's not something that the human race can withstand. Chu Luyue's plan to use her own flesh and blood to resist it is simply ridiculous. She did not care about her own safety at all. But Chu Luyue's lips. Although I'm to be honest with you, my physical strength is not inferior to that of a 9th-rank warrior. Also, if there is any danger, I have the ability to protect myself. You know this very well, don't you? But, the legendary three-eyed eagle wanted to persuade him again. In addition, the most important thing is that Tuanzi is my friend as well as my family. I can't just stand by and watch, even if I have to pay a painful price. Chu Luyue's voice was very soft, but every word he said seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Something flashed in the eyes of the legendary three-eyed eagle. Boom! Chu Luyue's barrier began to crumble. I can't hesitate any longer. Chu Luyue placed his hand on Dumpling's body and slowly closed his eyes. Let's begin. Early morning. Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng arrived at Mount Jiuheng early in the morning. On one hand, they wanted to visit Chu Luyue's illness. On the other hand, Luo Yanming had always wanted to find an opportunity to spar with Chu Luyue about Xian formations, but she never had the chance, so she planned to try today. If Chu Luyue's body was fine, then they could start today. The two of them shouted twice outside the barrier, but no one answered. Could it be that this fellow hasn't woken up yet? Zhuosheng asked suspiciously. Luo Yanming frowned and raised her voice to shout again. There was still no response. Something's wrong. Luo Yanming frowned slightly. It was not the first time they came to call for him. Chu Luyue always came out very quickly, but this time, no one responded and no one could see him. Could there really be a problem? The joking expression on Zhuosheng's face disappeared. He took a few steps forward, but was quickly pushed back by the pressure of the barrier. He looked at Luo Yanming with some hesitation. He hasn't gone out recently, right? Luo Yanming shook her head. I saw him go to the Medicine Wind Valley yesterday evening. He should have gone to get medicine. It's impossible for him to not return for a night. The two of them looked at each other and were worried. Is it really because he's sick? Zhuosheng's face was full of suspicion. If it's not an important illness, he shouldn't give up the opportunity to go to the primeval north. No, I think we should ask the elders to come over and take a look. Luo Yanming was still a little uncertain at first, but after listening to him, she felt that it made sense and nodded in agreement. You stay here first. I'll ask Master to come over. He seems to be able to enter Jiuheng Mountain. With that, Luo Yanming turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from within Jiuheng Mountain. Boom! The two of them were startled and looked over at the same time. No, there was nothing. That sound seemed to have come from inside the room. The two of them looked even more tense. At first, it was just a guess, but now. Perhaps something had really happened. Luo Yanming did not say anything and immediately left at full speed. Only Zhuosheng was left at the scene, looking at Jiuheng Mountain with a face full of worry. Inside the room, Chu Luyue sat cross-legged with her eyes closed. Her face was flushed red, and her brows were tightly knitted, as if she was suffering from some kind of great pain. In front of her, Dumpling was lying there quietly, motionless. The color of the feathers on its body gradually became denser, and the aura around its body also rapidly increased. Waves of energy spread out in all directions. A portion of this energy was devoured by the three-eyed eagle, while the remaining portion flowed into Chu Liyue's body. The veins on her forehead bulged, and the blood in her body flowed as if it was boiling. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1309. Chu Liyue's physical strength was definitely one of the best among warriors of the same level or even higher. Now that she had undergone a lot of tempering, even if she had to deal with the attacks of two puppets of the 9th rank, it would not be a problem. However, this was only compared to the human race. At this moment, Chu Liyue finally understood what the three-eyed eagle meant by those warnings. The endurance of magical beasts and humans were not on the same level. The bloodline power in Dumpling's body was gradually awakening. This power could be said to be terrifying. Even though her body had undergone a lot of tempering, it was still a little difficult for her to deal with this power. Her flesh and bones felt like they were about to be torn apart. The violent power surged like a river, instantly devouring everything. Chu Liyue endured the torture of this power on her body and reintroduced it into Dumpling's body. At the same time, she kept calling out Dumpling's name in her heart, hoping that it would wake up as soon as possible. However, as time went by, Tuanzi didn't respond. Elder Huafeng rushed over with Luo Yanming. "Where's Chuyu?" Zhuosheng quickly said, "He should still be inside. But the situation may be a little dangerous." In this short period of time, another muffled sound came from inside. He felt uneasy when he heard it. Elder Huafeng frowned and took a few steps forward. On the way here, he had already heard Luo Yanming explain the situation. "This old man will go in and take a look." Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng were about to follow, but they were nailed to the ground by his gaze. "You guys stay here. If there really was a situation inside, these two people would not be enough for him to worry about." Seeing the usually amiable Elder Huafeng reveal such a serious expression, the two of them did not dare to say anything. They only nodded and obediently stayed where they were. Elder Huafeng raised his hand, took out the green jade token, and placed it on the barrier. Wang! The barrier opened. Elder Huafeng quickly flashed in. "Someone is coming." The voice of the three-eyed eagle suddenly entered her ears. Chu Liyue had been in a tense state, so she didn't hear Luo Yanming and the other shouts. But at this moment, the words of the legendary three-eyed eagle finally made her sober up. "Who is it?" Normally, almost no one would casually enter or leave this place. It doesn't seem to be Rongxiu. If it was him, she should be able to sense it. "No." The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly replied. Chu Liyue gritted her teeth. "Come back first." The fact that the legendary three-eyed eagle was her contracted mythological beast must not be easily discovered by others. Otherwise, her true identity would be discovered at any moment. But Dumpling's bloodline power had yet to be completely awakened. Once it stopped, the torment and pressure Chu Liyue would have to endure would be double or even more. Chu Liyue shook his head. "I have my ways." The legendary three-eyed eagle had no choice but to withdraw into Chu Liyue's dantian. Boom! A terrifying force crushed over, causing Chu Liyue's chest to tighten and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Yu? Are you inside?" Elder Huafeng's voice was filled with anxiety and worry as he approached. Chu Liyue endured the intense pain all over her body and picked up Dumpling, hugged her tightly in her arms, and ran outside. Bang! Elder Huafeng was about to push the door open when it suddenly opened and a figure rushed out. It was Chu Yu. Elder Huafeng was about to speak when Chu Luyue brushed past him. Elder Huafeng, I have something urgent to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. I'll explain to you when I come back. Elder Huafeng was a little confused. He quickly followed and grabbed Chu Luyue. Wait. Chu Yu. What's wrong with you? As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Chu Luyue's current appearance clearly and was immediately shocked. Because at this moment, her originally fair and delicate face was already flushed red. The veins on her forehead were throbbing, and her brows were tightly furrowed. Her clothes were almost drenched in sweat. It was as if she had just undergone some torture. Elder Huafeng, I really don't have time to explain it to you in detail now. Please let me go over first. Chu Luyue hugged Dumpling even tighter and said hurriedly. Elder Huafeng was even more confused, but seeing her like this, he didn't dare to do anything and immediately let go. However, he still couldn't help but ask, are you going there? If you encounter any difficulties, feel free to tell me. I'll help you think of a way. Chu Luyue's heart warmed. If it weren't for the fact that she was almost unable to withstand the surging bloodline power in Dumpling's body, she would have stayed and chatted for a while. Thank you, Elder. Without saying a word, she turned around and ran. Sigh. You child. Elder Huafeng was also anxious. Anyone could tell that something had really happened. He hurriedly followed. At this moment, Chu Luyue had already run all the way and was rushing straight in a certain direction. Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng saw her, but before they could say anything, she had already rushed over. Elder Huafeng followed closely behind. But soon, he realized that something was wrong. Because the direction Chu Luyue was heading towards was actually the Beast Park. When Chu Luyue arrived, she saw Elder Yu Yu and immediately felt as if she had seen her savior, Elder Yu Yu. Please open the enchantment. I'll borrow this Beast Park for a while. Digression, the explosive update is here. Please throw the evaluation votes and monthly votes over as if they don't cost anything. Plant a monthly vote and you'll reap a diligent February. There's a small surprise at noon. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:10. Elder Yu Yu was shocked by the scene in front of him. Chu Yu? What's wrong with you? Elder Huafeng hurriedly shouted from behind, don't ask. Open the barrier and let him in. At this moment, Elder Yu Yu finally saw Chu Luyue's sorry state. He didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly opened the barrier. An entrance slowly opened. Chu Luyue immediately sped up and rushed in. Thank you, Elder Yu Yu. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed inside. Elder Yu Yu only felt a gust of wind blow past, and Chu Yu disappeared. He hurriedly turned around and saw that the young man was rushing straight to the inner area of the Beast Park at an astonishing speed. Elder Huafeng followed closely behind. Elder Yu Yu immediately followed with a frown. Huafeng, what's going on? Why did Chu Yu suddenly rush over in such a hurry early in the morning? Moreover, there was something wrong with the way he looked. As Elder Huafeng rushed forward, he said, I'm not sure now. That kid didn't have time to say anything and went straight here. I don't know what he wants to do. After that, he briefly recounted the events of the day to Elder Yu Yu, causing Elder Yu Yu's brows to knit together tightly. If he's sick, why did he come here? This Beast Park is full of all kinds of ferocious magical beasts. Wouldn't it be even more dangerous for him to barge in rashly? Elder Yu Yu really couldn't figure it out. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's follow him and see what he wants to do. As Elder Huafeng spoke, he sped up again. On the other side, Chu Luyue really used all her strength and rushed to a mountain peak as fast as she could. As if sensing her aura, a huge steel spine beast walked out of the cave and looked in the direction of Chu Luiyue. "Ah Qiong!" Chu Luiyue shouted and quickly flew down. After landing in front of the cave, she hurriedly walked inside. "Ah Qiong! Do me a favor." Seeing Chu Luiyue's current state, Ah Qiong's originally joyful and longing expression instantly became tense and serious. It followed Chu Yu inside. Tao Tao seemed to be sleeping. He opened his eyes slowly when he heard the noise. Out of the corner of its eye, it saw a familiar figure and immediately got up happily. However, just as it was about to go over happily, it realized that there was something wrong with Chu Luiyue. At this moment, Ah Qiong also walked in and looked at Chu Luiyue worriedly. Tao Tao ran to his mother hurriedly. Under the gaze of the mother and son, Chu Luiyue loosened his embrace. A furry dumpling was revealed. Ah Qiong and Dumpling both took a step back, their eyes filled with awe and shock. The red-tailed red phoenix had the power of the blood of the red-tailed red phoenix, one of the two ancient mythical beasts, so it was respected even among the mythical beasts. In addition, it was at the critical moment of the awakening of the power of the blood. The pressure from the blood was even stronger, so it would naturally make Ah Qiong and others surrender unconsciously. At this moment, Chu Luiyue looked back at Ah Qiong. There seemed to be a flame burning in her black jade-like eyes. There were already red bloodstains slowly oozing out on her clothes, soaking her clothes. Because it couldn't bear the power of the blood that was awakening in Dumpling's body, Chu Luiyue's skin began to crack. Ah Qiong's expression became serious, and she immediately understood what happened. Chu Luiyue swallowed the blood in her throat with difficulty. Ah Qiong, before she finished speaking, Ah Qiong had already walked forward and lay beside Chu Luiyue and Dumpling. It lowered its head and touched Dumpling with its horns. A portion of Dumpling's power began to surge into its body. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed, and the pressure on her body immediately lessened. She said word by word, "Ah Qiong, thank you." After seeing Chu Luiyue's figure disappear into the cave, Elder Yu Yu frowned and stopped. Elder Hua Feng was about to continue rushing over when he was stopped. "Hua Feng, wait. That mountain is the territory of the steel spine beast. We can't get close easily. What time is it now? Even if we can't get close, we have to go." Elder Hua Feng was anxious. He pushed his hand away and was about to go over. That steel spine beast is a mythical beast. With Chu Yu's current state, how can he be its match? Elder Yu Yu sighed helplessly and said, "It's precisely because it's a steel spine beast that I can be a little more at ease. I can't ignore Chu Yu just because it's dangerous, right?" Elder Hua Feng was stunned. "What do you mean by that?" "That steel spine beast has a close relationship with Chu Yu, so it won't hurt him. I think that Chu Yu came this time to ask for the steel spine beast's help." Elder Hua Feng was at a loss. Chu Yu has a close relationship with the steel spine beast? What the hell is going on? Seeing Elder Hua Feng's puzzled face, Elder Yu Yu could only briefly explain what had happened to him. With every sentence he said, Elder Hua Feng's expression became more and more shocked. In the end, he was almost completely stunned. That's how it is. Although I don't know why the steel spine beast is willing to sacrifice its life for Chu Luiyue, I'm sure that now that Chu Luiyue has gone over, not only will it not hurt him, it will even do its best to help. So, let's just watch for now. Elder Hua Feng didn't say anything for a long time. There was too much information, and he couldn't accept it for a while. Chu Yu was actually punished to be locked up here for a month. And then he broke through to the 8th rank here. And even one of the mythical beasts here, the steel spine beast, was willing to sacrifice its life to protect him. Elder Hua Feng held his forehead with a headache and closed his eyes. Elder Yu Yu looked at him sympathetically. When these things happened one after another, even he was shocked speechless, let alone Elder Hua Feng who didn't know anything about it. Since that's the case, doesn't that mean that Chu should be safe now? Elder Huafeng asked, his voice a little shaky. Half and half. He obviously came for the steel spine beast. Perhaps he was sure that the steel spine beast could help him. It's a pity that we don't know what's wrong with him, so we can only wait and see. As Elder Yu spoke, he patted Elder Huafeng's arm comfortingly. Don't worry. That kid's life is very tough, nothing will happen to him. That night, he was besieged by so many mythical beasts, but he survived unscathed, let alone now. Elder Huafeng's mood was complicated, and he could only let out a long sigh. I hope so. Silence reigned in the cave. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. Not far in front of her was Dumpling, who was lying on the ground, and beside her was Xiong. Terrifying forces were wreaking havoc in her body. The ground beneath her was gradually dyed red with blood. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:11. After a long time, Dumpling's wings finally moved. It seemed that she was about to wake up. Chu Luiyue was happy in her heart, but she didn't dare to relax at all. Her body seemed to be cut by countless knives, and the severe pain came from all parts of her body. No matter how powerful she was just a warrior at the 8th level now. How could she bear the power of a divine beast? Especially, it was the power of the red-tailed phoenix, which was almost the top bloodline. Xiong was next to her, taking most of the power into its own body. Gradually, tiny cracks began to appear on its incredibly tough skin. Blood flowed out slowly. Wu, seeing this scene, Tao Tao was afraid and worried. His eyes were full of panic. He ran over and touched Xiong's body. Xiong didn't move. Looking at the blood on the ground, Tao Tao shed tears again. He simply put his horns over and wanted to help. Chu Luiyue noticed the movement and warned in a low voice, Tao Tao, step back. Now it was not an adult, and its strength was not enough in all aspects. It didn't even cross the threshold of a divine beast. How could it bear the power of Dumpling? Xiong also opened its eyes and kicked Tao Tao away. Tao Tao rolled on the ground for half a circle. It was stained with a lot of blood and mud. It looked very embarrassed. It got up unwillingly and wanted to go again. Xiong made a low cry in its throat, which was full of majesty. Tao Tao was so scared that he stood still. He didn't dare to move again, but his tears kept falling down. Chu Luiyue's mouth overflowed with blood. Her internal organs seemed to be stirred crazily. She was very uncomfortable. Soon, her red cheeks became pale, and all the blood faded away quickly. A feeling of collapse came from the depths of her body, and the scene in front of her began to turn white. Chu Luiyue knew that she was already a spent arrow. It had been 2 or 3 hours since he found that Dumpling was going to break through last night. It was very amazing that Chu Luiyue could hold on until now. If it were other warriors at the 8th level, their bodies might have burst because they couldn't bear it. You can't go on like this. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle fell into her ears. Here I come. Chu Luiyue shook his head. That won't do. There are many demonic beasts here. Once you appear, they will definitely sense you. Moreover, Elder Yu and Elder Huafeng are outside as well. She couldn't take the risk. But you can't hold on any longer. The voice of the legendary three-eyed eagle was exceptionally cold and firm. Do you want to die? The corners of Chu Luiyue's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an extremely faint smile. There are other ways. She was silent for a moment. Suddenly she looked at Tao Tao and said word by word, Tao Tao, if you want to save your mother, go to ask for help immediately. Tao Tao stopped crying. He looked at Chu Luiyue blankly with his big eyes. Foreign aid? What foreign aid? The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice became even colder. Those two humans have nothing to do with the red-tailed red phoenix. Even if they come, they can't help at all. You're still, who said I invited them? Chu Luiyue interrupted the legendary three-eyed eagle. The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned. Who else could it be? It seemed that there were only those two people who could come to help in this area. Chu Luiyue didn't answer its question. She just took a deep breath and endured the pain in her body. She said slowly, Silver Ear Piebald Beast, Motonk, Nightmare Beast, Nine Thunder Giant Ape. The names of the mythological beasts came out from her mouth one by one. Ask them to come here immediately. After she finished speaking, the cave was silent for a moment. The legendary three-eyed eagle couldn't believe it and asked, You want to ask these mythological beasts to come here to help? These were all mythological beasts. They were all arrogant, fierce, and violent. It was impossible for them to gather together to help anyone at the same time. Even those ninth-grade evil beasts would not be willing to listen to the orders of a human, let alone them. What was Chu Luiyue thinking about? Could it be that he had gone mad? Of course, Chu Luiyue was not crazy. On the contrary, she was extraordinarily calm. Dumpling is a mythological beast. It's useless for ninth-grade evil beasts to come here. Naturally, I want to ask these mythological beasts to come here. The legendary three-eyed eagle choked. For a moment, it didn't know how to refute. In its opinion, Chu Luiyue was just wishful thinking. Chu Luiyue didn't care about its opinion. She just looked at Tao Tao and urged him, It will be too late if you wait a little longer. Tao Tao was shocked. Then he reacted. He immediately turned around and ran outside. Just when he rushed to the entrance of the cave, Chu Luiyue shouted again, Wait. Tao Tao turned back. Chu Luiyue's voice was very light, but it seemed to be very powerful, which shocked people's minds. If they don't want to cooperate, just say that I asked them to come here. If anyone doesn't listen to me, I will slaughter the beast park again in the future. The waiting time seemed to be extremely long and unbearable. Elder Xiaofan clasped his hands in front of him tightly. He frowned and kept staring at the mountain peak not far away. His heart seemed to be suspended by something. It was neither up nor down. He was very uncomfortable. Alas! There was a little noise just now. Why is there no sound at all now? I don't know how Chu Yu is now. Although Elder Yu Yu was also very worried, he was much calmer than Elder Xiaofan. After all, he saw with his own eyes how Chu Yu killed the golden cloud leopard and the black gold wolf with one sword. Seeing that Elder Xiaofan was very worried, he thought for a while and comforted him, Xiaofan, it's useless to be so nervous now. I've said that this guy's strength is good now. He won't. His voice suddenly stopped, and he looked surprised and doubtful. Elder Xiaofan followed his gaze and looked at it. He was also puzzled at once. Is that the cub of the steel spine beast? Elder Yu Yu nodded. It came out. What's inside? No, why did it run down the mountain? When they were talking, the cub of the steel spine beast that came out of the cave ran down the mountain quickly. Its speed was extremely fast. Bang! Bang! Even the ground where it passed by was shaking. Elder Yu Yu didn't know why, but he suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. It was reasonable to say that this cub of the steel spine beast should have a good relationship with Chu Yu. But now, for some reason, it suddenly ran out alone. However, Chu Yu and the adult steel spine beast in the cave didn't move at all. This was simply too strange. No, I have to go down and take a look. Elder Xiaofan said as he was about to go over. Elder Yu Yu immediately pulled him back. Wait a little longer. What are you waiting for? Elder Xiaofan was sweating profusely. If something really happens to that kid, it will be too late if we go over now. Let go of me. You, Elder Huafeng was struggling when he suddenly saw Elder Yuyu's expression change drastically. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly turned around to look. When he saw it, he couldn't help but gasp. Why did a divine beast come over at this time? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:12. Mo Tianke. It was rumored that this kind of magical beast was fierce and extremely aggressive. But was it true? Elder Huafeng widened his eyes and stared at the rapidly approaching Mo Tianke as he asked anxiously. Elder Yu pursed his lips and said calmly, "Don't worry. Although this Mo Tianke is a divine beast, with our strength, it's not a problem to deal with it." His voice stopped abruptly. Because after that Mo Tianke, there were actually a few more that flew over in succession. They were extremely fast and had already flown past in the blink of an eye. They were heading towards the mountain where Chu Yu was. At a rough glance, there were as many as 5 or 6 of them. Elder Huafeng tugged at Elder Yu's sleeve. "Do you still mean what you said just now? They are so small. The 2 of us should be able to deal with 5 or 6 of them, right?" Even he felt a little guilty when he said this. Mo Tianke's body was very small, but it was still a divine beast after all. Moreover, it was the kind that was notorious for being fierce. To be able to win such an evaluation from so many magical beasts, one could see how strong its combat strength was. Elder Yu was also dumbfounded. In the entire beast park, there were only about 10 Mo Tianke in total. Half of them had come all of a sudden. Even on the night when Chu Yu was preparing to break through, there weren't so many of them. He frowned and his expression was solemn. "Don't worry, it should be, look." Before he could finish speaking, Elder Huafeng exclaimed again and pointed to a certain place below. "That's a silver ear-spotted beast." Elder Yu took a closer look and saw that it was indeed a silver ear-spotted beast whose ears had been cut off. The cuts on the ears were neat and flat. It didn't look like they were bitten off by other magical beasts. Instead, it looked more like they were cut off by some kind of sharp weapon. With its ears cut off, its strength will be greatly reduced. Why is it here at this time? Elder Yu couldn't understand. But soon, he didn't have time to think about this. Because behind the silver ear-spotted beast, there were actually more magical beasts approaching. Nightmare Beast. 9 Lightning Giant Ape. Golden Eye Ice Bat. Looking at the figures that appeared one after another, Elder Yu's voice gradually trembled. Why are there so many divine beasts all of a sudden? From the looks of it, they were all targeting Chu Yu. What kind of sin did this kid commit? The previously calm and collected Elder Yu finally couldn't help but explode. Chu Yu wasn't preparing to break through this time. They had waited outside for so long, but they didn't even notice any movement. Why did it attract so many divine beasts? Elder Huafeng grabbed him by the collar. Yu, didn't you just say there was no problem? What was going on now? I don't know either. I shouldn't have listened to you. We should have just gone over there. Elder Huafeng gave him a hard shove. Now that so many divine beasts have come, it will be difficult to pass. If the 2 of them work together, they might be able to deal with a few of them. But now, the number had far exceeded their expectations. Even if they tried to stop him, it would be futile. Wanzheng only has this one precious disciple. Furthermore, Chu Yu and Rong Xiao have an extraordinary relationship. If something were to happen to him, Elder Huafeng's throat was dry. What do you think we should do in this situation? Elder Yu looked conflicted. At this moment, his gaze suddenly froze. Wait! Behind the group of divine beasts, a familiar figure suddenly ran forward. It was the steel spine beast cub that had left in a hurry just now. At this moment, it had already run in front of the divine beasts and ran back to the cave at its fastest speed. Throughout the entire process, none of the divine beasts stopped it. In fact, there was even a faint feeling that it was following him as he walked up. What's wrong? Elder Huafeng saw that his expression was not right and became even more worried. Look, Elder Yu raised his hand and said in disbelief. They seem to be following that steel spine beast cub. How is that possible? Elder Huafeng subconsciously refuted. Although he didn't come to this beast park often, he knew that the steel spine beast was a 9th-grade divine beast when it was a cub. It was already good enough that these divine beasts didn't bully it. How could they follow it? But then, he realized that what Elder Yu said seemed to be true. These divine beasts usually minded their own business. They each occupied their own mountains and didn't interact much. However, at this moment, they had gathered together, which was rare. Moreover, they didn't fight with each other. Instead, they were all heading in the same direction. He turned his gaze and held his breath. They seemed to be following that steel spine beast cub to the cave halfway up the mountain. Chu Yu is. What is he doing? Elder Huafeng couldn't help but mutter in a low voice. His face was filled with shock. He never dreamed that he would be able to see such a scene in his lifetime. Elder Yu didn't say a word. The expression on his face seemed to be frozen. Only his pair of surging eyes revealed that his mood was not calm at this moment. Could it be that Chu Yu was really planning to break through again? But if that was the case, these divine beasts would definitely not have such a reaction. They were silent and tacitly heading in the same direction. It was as if they were carrying out some kind of order. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Elder Yu suppressed it. It was too ridiculous. How was this possible? Only those two ancient divine beasts could summon all the divine beasts in the world. And Chu Yu, boom! A huge roar suddenly came out from the cave. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13:13. With this loud noise, a vast and turbulent power erupted from the cave. The mountain peak shook violently as if it was in danger of collapsing at any time. The two elders' hearts were in a mess. Then, they saw that the divine beasts did not leave after hearing the noise. Instead, they suddenly sped up and rushed into the cave. The first to arrive was Mo Tianke. A few Mo Tianke glanced at Dumpling lying on the ground and felt the pressure on her body. They all took a step back subconsciously. Chu Luyue looked up and glanced at them. Immediately after, the Mo sky sparrows quickly flew forward and lined up in a row. One of them, Chu Luyue, looked quite familiar. Looking at the fluffy wing that had just grown out, she narrowed her eyes. You came quite quickly. The few Mo Tianke were angry but did not dare to say anything. They straightened their small bodies. Chu Luyue raised her hand. A part of the power was transferred to them. The ones behind, come one by one. Chu Luyue said lightly. The few magical beasts that had just entered were stunned. They looked at each other and did not know who would go first. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slightly and was a little impatient. Just follow the order of the fight with me before. Oh, it's the order of being beaten. The few of them quickly understood and hurriedly lined up. Chu Luyue slowly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and showed a rare satisfied smile. In fact, she was almost unable to hold on at this time. She was just relying on the last of her willpower to hold on. She raised her finger and another part of the power was shared. This time, the pressure on Chu Luyue and Qiong was reduced by a lot. She closed her eyes and smiled faintly. Her voice was a little hoarse and lazy. Very good. As obedient as before. All the divine beasts entered the cave one after another. The surroundings seemed to have returned to peace. Except for the energy that was spreading and getting stronger and stronger, everything seemed to be the same as before. The two elders stood in the air in a daze, completely confused by what was happening in front of them. These divine beasts, went in just like that? Elder Xiaofan swallowed hard. Still waiting in line? What was wrong with this world? You, say something. Elder Yu rubbed his forehead. What do you want me to say? You have stayed in this beast park for such a long time, you should know more than me, right? What was going on? Elder Xiaofan was both shocked and worried. Elder Yu glanced at him and faintly said, "Do I look like I know?" But Chu Yu is still inside. Rather than worrying about him, why don't you worry about the demonic beasts in the beast park? Elder Yu took a deep breath. He had worked so hard to take care of the beast park, but in the end, he was worse off than a brat. Elder Xiaofan frowned. This power that is constantly spreading doesn't seem to belong to Chu Yu. If he didn't guess wrongly. Perhaps it was the aura of the red-tailed phoenix? Not bad. Elder Yu looked at the mountain peak. His contracted divine beast, the red-tailed red phoenix, is probably undergoing the awakening of its bloodline power. And, he paused and suddenly turned around to ask, who else knows that Chu Yu is here? Let me think. Other than Zhuosheng and Luo Yanming, there shouldn't be anyone else. Elder Xiaofan hesitated and said, but I don't know if anyone else saw him on the way. Try your best to block the news. If anyone talks about it, just say that he went over there. Elder Yu pointed to a few mountain peaks outside the beast park. With you as a witness, I don't think anyone will doubt it. Elder Xiaofan nodded and couldn't help but ask, I know that coming to the beast park isn't a good thing in the academy, but I don't think that's the only reason, right? Elder Yu nodded. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. It's not good to be too ostentatious. What do you mean? Let's wait and see. Chu Yu's red-tailed phoenix is probably going to cause a big commotion this time. The calm before the storm always made people panic. Time slowly passed. Gradually, the divine beasts that had entered the cave earlier began to come out one after another. From the outside, there was almost no difference from when they entered. After they came out, they didn't stay for long and quickly dispersed. However, as this process progressed, the power that was constantly spreading in the cave was also rapidly increasing. Several cracks had already appeared on the mountain peak. The entire mountain was on the verge of collapse. Some mountain rocks began to roll down. Everything seemed to be indicating that a shocking change was about to happen. With the help of these divine beasts, Chu Luiyue felt much more relaxed. She had even gradually gotten used to the painful tearing feeling. The force in her body was almost exhausted. Chu Luiyue tried her best to help Dumpling circulate her strength while trying her best to heal the injuries in her body. Suddenly, Dumpling's wings moved. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, the water droplet in her dantian seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and slowly began to spin. Surging power surged out one after another. Almost at the same time, a ball of red flames suddenly erupted from Dumpling's body. Bang! The raging flames completely enveloped her body. The power that had been hovering around its body was rapidly converging into its body. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. Dumpling was going to wake up. However, at this moment, the divine beasts next to her suddenly seemed to have sensed a terrifying existence and retreated one after another. They looked at Dumpling with undisguised deep fear and awe. Chu Luiyue seemed to have sensed something and looked at Dumpling. A cluster of golden flames suddenly burst out. Digression, round it up. That's it for today. Tomorrow is still a day of hard work. The update time may not be too stable, so everyone can read it together later. Walk past with a proud face. Today is a February that will be praised. Dance with the small ticket. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 13-14. This golden flame was extremely dazzling. The moment it appeared, it lit up the whole cave instantly. An indescribably vast aura spread out from it. Chu Luyue was shocked, and the water droplets in her body rotated faster unconsciously. The force in her body began to rotate at a more unusual speed. Woo, a low whimper came. It was the evil beasts around. At this time, they all bent down and looked at the burning flame, trembling. That was the absolute pressure from the bloodline. It was a complete suppression. Even Aqiong stood up with difficulty. She took Cao Cao back a few steps. In the cave, the brilliant fire was shining, as if it was daytime. In the middle, there was a person and a beast. Chu Luyue stared at the golden flame and the red flame. As time went by, the surrounding red flame seemed to gradually turn into golden flame. The light became brighter and brighter. Chu Luyue said, "You all go out first." Hearing her words, many evil beasts nodded hurriedly and retreated. "Xiong, you and Cao Cao also go outside to guard first." Xiong looked at her hesitantly, but finally she obeyed her order and left with Cao Cao. The injuries on its body were quite serious. Its skin and flesh were chapped, and blood was flowing out. Many of its wounds looked like they were badly mutilated. It could be seen that it had suffered a terrible attack just now. Wherever they passed, there was a line of blood with different depths on the ground. After they all left, Chu Luyue took back her sight and looked at Dumpling. Dumpling's eyelids moved as if she was aware of her gaze. Chu Luyue smiled in a low voice, "You have to pay off the debt you owe when you go out." Dumpling didn't say anything, but the flame on her body burned more fiercely. The two elders stared at the mountain peak nervously. More and more divine beasts came out. But after they reached the foot of the mountain, they didn't leave. Instead, they stopped and looked at the mountainside together, as if they were waiting for something. "What are they doing?" Elder Huafeng was confused by this scene. The ones from before all scattered. Why are they not leaving now that they've come out? Elder Yu didn't say anything, but his expression became even more serious. The guess in his heart might really come true. More and more cracks appeared on the mountain peak. Trees collapsed one after another, and rocks rolled down the mountain. The surrounding heaven and earth energy began to surge toward them. In the end, it formed a huge energy vortex, which looked very shocking. Dark clouds rolled and the wind howled. Anyone could see that the mountain was about to be destroyed. Furthermore, something even more shocking must have happened. A storm was brewing. Elder Huafeng gradually felt a trace of uneasiness. He pursed his lips tightly and didn't say anything else. The surroundings quieted down. It was like an undercurrent on the surface of the water, ready to erupt at any time. A day passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was evening. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, Zhuosheng paced back and forth in front of the house with an anxious expression. Luo Yanming, who was sitting in the room, finally couldn't help but say, "Zhuosheng, you're making me dizzy. Can't you sit down and wait?" "I can't sit down." Zhuosheng scratched his head with a frustrated expression. "Tell me, where did Chu Yu and Elder Huafeng go? It's been half a day, but we haven't seen a single person. Sigh, if only we had caught up in time." Luo Yanming looked at him suspiciously. "Do you have some misunderstanding about your own strength, or do you think too highly of me? Do you actually think that the two of us can catch up to my master?" The situation had happened suddenly. After Chu Yu came out of Nineheng Mountain, he quickly disappeared. Elder Huafeng followed closely behind, and he didn't even have time to say a word before running away. Originally, Zhuosheng and Luo Yanming had planned to follow them, but they lost them not long after. Helpless, the two of them could only choose to return first. They planned to wait for Elder Huafeng and the others to return before asking in detail what was going on. Although they were worried about Chu Yu, Elder Huafeng was a respected elder of the academy after all. With him around, they could feel a little more at ease. Who knew that this wait would last for nearly a day? Elder Huafeng and Chu Yu didn't show any signs of returning. The two of them didn't dare to go outside and ask around, so they could only continue to scratch their heads and wait. Hearing this, Zhuosheng was a little disheartened. It's strange. You said that Elder Huafeng's strength is tyrannical, so it's normal that we can't catch up. But why is Chu Yu's speed so fast? At that time, he hadn't seen anything clearly and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. It's not bad that he's a 9th grade celestial physician now, but his cultivation level isn't as high as mine. How can he be faster than me? Zhuosheng really couldn't understand. Moreover, I don't know if it's an illusion or not, but when he rushed past me, I felt that his aura was not much worse than mine. He was more conservative with his words. In fact, when he thought about it later, he even felt that he was slightly inferior to the other party. But Chu Yu was indeed only a 7th rank warrior some time ago, which everyone saw with their own eyes. Even if he was a genius, it was impossible to break through so much in such a short period of time, right? What's so strange about this? Compared to Zhuosheng's shock and suspicion, Luo Yanming was much calmer. He smiled. Do you really think that he's only talented as a celestial physician? The corner of Zhuosheng's eyes twitched. What do you mean by that? Luo Yanming's lips moved, and in the end, he only said, how can he be an ordinary person to be valued so highly by senior brother Rongxiu? I just feel that what he has displayed now is not his true strength. That's true. Chu Yu has always been unpredictable, and he has hidden his strength deeply. Zhuosheng nodded in agreement and said again, however, I still hope that nothing will happen to him this time. It's fine as long as he's fine. Let's wait and see. Luo Yanming said. Night. Beast Park. Elder Huafeng and Zhuosheng were still waiting. The surroundings had already darkened, and only on the mountain peak, a bright glow shone out from the cave. Moreover, as time passed, the light became more and more dazzling. Suddenly, the huge energy vortex stopped spinning, and then swept away with the dark clouds in the sky. Kacha. An exceptionally clear sound of the mountain rocks shattering could be heard. In the quiet mountain forest, it was exceptionally clear. The two elders looked at each other and saw the nervousness in each other's eyes. Boom! The mountain peak, which had long been on the verge of collapse, exploded from the inside out by a terrifying force. A thick reddish-gold flame that seemed to be unable to dissipate soared into the sky. Amidst it, an astonishing aura that seemed to have come from ancient times swept across the entire sky in a grandiose manner. Whoosh! A pair of huge wings suddenly spread out. Screech! Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-15. Clear. Melodious. Majestic. A clear cry shook the heavens and earth. Countless magical beasts that had been waiting quietly in the surroundings for a day heard this command. Their spirits were lifted, and they immediately let out a cry in unison. In his voice, there was neither the arrogance nor the ruthlessness of a divine beast. There was only complete submission and reverence. In the next moment, these magical beasts actually knelt on the ground. They were trembling with fear, but they were also filled with piety and reverence. That was admiration and reverence for the most noble bloodline in the world. Such a scene truly shocked the two elders both physically and mentally. Elder Huafeng widened his eyes in shock. That is, an absurd and daring conjecture flashed through his mind. But because it was too unbelievable, he found it difficult to say those words. Red gold flames. In the world, only one kind of magical beast had such a flame. Even though Elder Yu had already guessed this result in his heart, he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. He took a deep breath and seemed to be able to smell the unique smell of the flames burning fiercely in the air. It was as if everything was going to be burned to ashes. That is, the ancient divine beast, the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. Every word seemed to carry a great weight, like a stone crashing down, causing people's hearts to tremble. How can it be? Elder Huafeng's expression was dull as he muttered in disbelief. The crimson gold heavenly phoenix hasn't appeared on the continent for 3,000 years, but now, that was Chu Yu's contracted magical beast. This fact constantly impacted Elder Huafeng's heart, causing him to feel a little dizzy. Elder Yu raised his head and looked at the red gold figure in the black night sky with a complicated expression. If he hadn't seen all of this with his own eyes, he would have thought that this was a dreamlike environment. The red-tailed phoenix originally had the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix flowing in its body. Among the many magical beasts in the world, it is the most likely existence to break through the shackles and become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. However, it is very difficult to achieve this step. With generations of inheritance, the current red-tailed phoenix's bloodline power is thin. Logically speaking, there is almost no such possibility, but Chu Yu's contracted magical beast did it. How could this not be shocking? No wonder. No wonder those magical beasts were so obedient just now. So, it was because they had already predicted the birth of this crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Elder Huafeng seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and a look of understanding appeared on his face. Apart from the two ancient godly beasts, who else would have such terrifying charisma? In the next moment, a slender figure leaped up from below. It was Chu Luyue whom the two elders had been waiting for a long time. At this moment, her clothes were already stained with bloodstains. Her complexion was also incomparably pale. She appeared to be in a very sorry state. However, only that pair of eyes were as bright as the stars, flickering with dazzling light. Sensing her arrival, the crimson gold celestial phoenix in the sky, which was being worshipped by many demonic beasts, looked down. Then, it flapped its wings and flew towards Chu Luyue. In the black night sky, a reddish gold arc was drawn. In the next second, it was already in front of Chu Luyue. A human and a beast stood facing each other. Chu Luyue's originally tall figure instantly appeared much smaller in the contrast of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. However, for some reason, she stood there quietly. Her aura did not lose to the crimson gold celestial phoenix. Under such a contrast, she still did not lose her brilliance. Dumpling. Chu Luyue looked at Dumpling, who had completely changed her appearance in front of her. Something seemed to be surging between her chest and abdomen. Her heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped out. She had already guessed that Dumpling might break through this bloodline awakening, but she did not expect that it would directly step into the threshold of the crimson gold celestial phoenix. No wonder it did not wake up for so long. It turned out that it was brewing such a big move. It was not in vain that she spent so much effort to help it. She carefully sized up Dumpling. Its size was not much different from before, but the red feathers all over its body had turned into a reddish gold color. Its two claws were snow white, but its eyes had turned into a rich black color. At a glance, it was sparkling and moist, but also seemed bottomless. Only occasionally, when its eyes moved, one could catch a glimpse of a gorgeous light flashing by. From this pair of eyes, Chu Luyue could clearly see her own reflection. Dumpling lowered its head and intimately rubbed against her face gently. Its body was burning with reddish gold flames, but when Chu Luyue touched these flames, she did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, she felt that they naturally merged together. Of course. This was her contracted magical beast. Feeling the heat from Dumpling's body, the soft feathers, and the strong attachment and intimacy, Chu Luyue could not help but take a step forward and hug Dumpling's neck tightly with both hands. Fortunately, Tuanzi was safe and sound by her side in the end. Looking at the woman and beast hugging together, the many divine beasts below all quieted down. Looking at Chu Luyue, there was only reverence and awe in their eyes. Previously, they were afraid of being beaten by her and did not dare to say anything, but now, they did not even dare to be angry. She had contracted with one of the two most noble ancient divine beasts in the world, and could be considered to be above all other beasts. What was there to make a fuss about? In the future, they could only be obedient. This kid. I'm afraid that his future will be limitless. Elder Yu still could not completely calm down, but he finally accepted everything that had happened. Looking at how close Chu Luyue and Dumpling were, he could not help but laugh bitterly. I knew that he was powerful, but I did not expect that he would encounter such an opportunity. Luck and strength, neither could be missing. Previously, when he heard that Chu had accidentally obtained the Red Cloud sword, he was somewhat unconvinced. There were so many elders and so many outstanding students in the academy, but in the end, a young man who had just arrived at the academy took advantage of it. No matter who heard it, it was impossible for them to be completely calm. But today, he finally understood. What was a Red Cloud sword? A contracted magical beast breaking through and becoming an ancient divine beast in one fell swoop, this was what made people speechless. After all, in the entire continent, there were not many venerable artifacts like the Red Cloud sword. But how many magical beasts were there in the world? Just in their Lingxiao college alone, he had seen 4 or 5 red-tailed phoenixes over the years. Not to mention the entire Divine Ruins world. There would definitely be more discussions. But Chu Yu's beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. How could this be reasonable? Phew. You're right. Elder Huafeng let out a long breath, rubbed his face hard, and sighed sincerely. Fortunately, I don't have a contract with a magical beast. Otherwise, I would be angered to death when I saw this scene. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-16. Chu Luyue touched Dumpling and then let go, raising his chin at the many magical beasts below. In order to help you just now, they all put in a lot of effort. The magical beasts who were suddenly praised immediately perked up, but their expressions were somewhat perturbed and nervous. Help? Put in effort? No, no, no. Of course, of course. To be able to witness the birth of the ancient crimson gold heavenly phoenix with their own eyes was already a blessing of 3 lifetimes, how would they dare to ask for more? In the beginning, they came here indeed because of Chu Luyue. But now, it was absolutely not the case. That little bit complaint towards Chu Luyue when they came had already vanished into thin air at this time, and they even faintly felt some gratitude. To magical beasts, the bloodline hierarchy was very strict. Not to mention this help, even if they were asked to give up their lives, they would absolutely have no way to complain. This was the majesty of the ancient divine beasts. Dumpling followed Chu Luyue's line of sight and looked down. Whoosh, with a flap of its wings, a crimson gold flame suddenly flew out, drawing a beautiful arc in midair. Then, with a bang, that flame shattered into countless sparks and scattered in all directions. These sparks landed on many magical beasts, and upon contact, they quickly melted away. Immediately after, the injuries on their bodies began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Their injuries were originally caused by Dumpling's awakening of the bloodline power, so at this time, it could be said that the problem had been solved fundamentally, so the effect was exceptionally good. Many magical beasts were all overwhelmed by the favor, and another wave of respectful kneeling and thanking. To be able to help the crimson gold heavenly phoenix break through and be nourished by its power was extremely rare to them, and it was also quite beneficial, so they were naturally full of gratitude. Even when they looked at Chu Luyue, their eyes were especially docile and respectful. Dumpling's action was obviously to tell them who was the one who had the final say. The divine beasts that appeared here were not stupid, so naturally, they went with the flow. Screech! Dumpling let out a clear cry again. Many magical beasts gradually began to retreat. In a short while, the magical beasts around the mountain all dispersed. Everything seemed to have finally returned to normal. Dumpling's body flashed and turned back into a small one. Compared to before, it looked much more exquisite and beautiful. It blinked and plunged into Chu Liyue's arms. Chu Liyue hugged it tightly and couldn't help but laugh, her eyes curved. Dumpling's little head rubbed against her shoulder affectionately. You. A clear and crisp sound entered his ears. Chu Liyue suddenly froze. This is Dumpling's voice? You, I miss you so much. Chu Yu. Just as Chu Liyue was about to say a few more words to Dumpling, a familiar voice suddenly came from the side. She raised her head and smiled. Greetings, elders. Elder Xiaofan looked at Dumpling, who was in Chu Liyue's arms, with curiosity and shock in his eyes. After all, this was the first time he had seen a crimson gold heavenly phoenix with his own eyes. Especially, it was contracted with a human. Chu Yu, how are you feeling? Elder Yu was still relatively calm. Looking at Chu Liyue's sorry state, he asked with concern. Chu Liyue smiled and said, Elder, don't worry. I'm fine. Although she had suffered some injuries before, after Dumpling broke through, these injuries had been rapidly healing due to the contract. She even felt that she seemed to be stronger than before. That's good, that's good. Elder Yu heaved a sigh of relief. As long as she was fine, everything else was fine. Only then did his gaze fall on Dumpling. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke cautiously. I haven't congratulated you yet. Your contracted divine beast has broken through. Thank you, Elder. Chu Liyue patted Dumpling gently and placed it on his shoulder. His expression became much more serious. Actually, this student has something that I want to ask the two elders. Speak. That is. Can I trouble the two elders to keep today's matter a secret for me for the time being? The two elders looked at each other. Now that he thought of asking this, don't worry, this is a matter of great importance. Unless you take the initiative to say it yourself, the two of us will never reveal a single word about this matter. Elder Yu said word by word. Elder Xiaofan also nodded quickly. That's right, that's right. We definitely won't say anything. What a joke. If this matter were to spread, wouldn't this child be thrown out as a target? If he was a god-rank expert now, he wouldn't say anything. Unfortunately, he was only at rank 8. Although his combat strength was stronger than an ordinary rank 8 warrior, he was still only at rank 8. Under such circumstances, it was better to keep a low profile. As for Shuosheng and Luo Yanming, I'll talk to them later. I definitely won't doubt you. As Elder Xiaofan spoke, he felt that this was nonsense. Who would suspect that Chu Yu's magical beast had broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Even if they were given 10 times more imagination, it wouldn't be enough. If he wasn't here and saw everything clearly from the beginning to the end, his first reaction when he heard this would definitely be to think that it was a joke. Hearing what they said, Chu Liyue felt much more at ease. The words of these two elders were still credible. Before she was strong enough, it was better to not expose these bedfellows as much as possible. It was a pity that she wouldn't be able to summon Dumpling out at will for a while. Thank you, Elder. Chu Liyue bowed politely to the two of them again. Elder Yu looked at her, then at Dumpling, and suddenly asked. How did your red-tailed phoenix suddenly break through? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 13-17. It was true that the red-tailed red phoenix possessed the bloodline power of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, but it was not so simple to cross this threshold. Elder Yu had seen many red-tailed red phoenixes over the years, so he was especially curious when he encountered such a situation. There should be some kind of opportunity, right? Elder Yu crossed his arms and tapped his fingers lightly on his arm. After all, even if it has a strong bloodline power in its body, it will take a lot of energy to activate it. And this was definitely not something a rank 8 warrior cultivator could do. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, she had the illusion that there was nowhere to hide. Elder Yu was indeed experienced in guarding the beast park for many years, and he was also very knowledgeable in this aspect. Otherwise, he would definitely not ask such a question. That's right. Chu Yu, the origin of your magical beast should be very unusual, right? Or perhaps it has encountered some kind of opportunity? Elder Xiaofan also interrupted and asked a few questions. He had experienced a lot with Chu Liyue, and even looking at her contracted magical beast, he felt that it was the chosen one and was very lucky. Chu Liyue paused, and the corners of her lips curled up into a faint smile. Dumpling is a magical beast that I accidentally contracted a long time ago. As far as I know, it shouldn't have any amazing background. It's just an ordinary red-tailed red phoenix. As for why it broke through this time. She blinked her eyes, and her expression was a little helpless. I'm not very sure either. However, it has been sleeping during this period of time, and no matter how I called it, it wouldn't wake up. When it suddenly woke up today, I realized that something was wrong, so I hurriedly brought it over. Elder Yu pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. That's it. The reason why it fell into a deep sleep for a long time should be to activate its bloodline power, and it only erupted today and directly broke through. Chu Yu, your luck is really unparalleled. This simply made people lose the energy to be envious. The heavens were unfair to begin with. Some people worked hard and got nothing, but some could always get the right opportunity at the right time. Of course, in Elder Yu's opinion, Chu Liyue did not completely rely on luck to have everything she had today. If it was someone else who had experienced the few crises she had faced, they would have been beaten to a pulp, and they might not even be able to keep their lives. Being able to grasp luck was also a kind of strength. Chu Liyue smiled. Elder Xiaofan looked at her pale face and felt his heart ache. All right. If you have anything to say, you can say it tomorrow. Chu Yu, you've suffered quite a bit today. Come back with me and recuperate first. Look at this small body, don't have any side effects. Chu Liyue's heart, okay. Elder Xiaofan personally sent Chu Liyue back to Mount Xiaoheng. After ascertaining that her body was indeed fine, he gave her a few more words of advice, telling her not to worry, and then left. As Yulin, he read White Jade. After watching Elder Xiaofan leave, Chu Liyue returned to her room. A look of contemplation flashed across her eyes. The two elders said that they would help keep it a secret. She firmly believed in this without a doubt. However, they might not be unsuspicious and curious about her. After returning, as long as they thought about it carefully, they would definitely be able to think of many unreasonable things. For example, why was the first place she went to when she was in trouble? For example, why was she able to summon so many magical beasts when she was in danger? Not to mention, Dumpling's breakthrough was so sudden. She did not see anything today, but there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. No one could guarantee that one day in the future, Dumpling would break through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix with the help of the Tianlei in the 1000 Wine Mountain Spring. She could use some answers to these questions for the time being, but what about in the future? Chu Liyue did not feel that she could hide it forever. However, she had no choice but to bring Dumpling to the Beast Park today. Under those circumstances, she had to rely on the help of other divine beasts to resolve the crisis. Later on, the facts also proved that if she really relied on the help of the legendary three-eyed eagle, she might not be able to survive. This was the best outcome. Chu Luiyue shook her head and suppressed all these noisy thoughts. She changed out of her dirty clothes and took a hot bath, which was rare for her. She even put some medicinal herbs in the water to nurse her injuries. An hour later, she finally tidied up and changed into a clean and comfortable set of clothes. Only then did she feel alive. Fortunately, the injuries on her body were not serious. Chu Luiyue used some medicine herself and would be able to recover after a period of time. When she came out, Dumpling, who had been waiting for a long time, could not help but pounce on her. However, this time, Chu Luiyue directly raised her hand and grabbed it. She grabbed Dumpling's wings and lifted it up. The human and the beast looked at each other. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and smiled. Dumpling. This smile made Dumpling shiver unconsciously. For a moment, it actually had the urge to run away. Unfortunately, Chu Luiyue grabbed its wings and it could not move at all. Therefore, it could only look at Chu Luiyue. Dumpling, I have a few things to ask you. You must tell me honestly, okay? Tuanzi blinked her eyes and nodded hard. Chu Luiyue was quite satisfied with its attitude and directly asked, how much do you remember from the past? Dumpling was stunned for a moment. Chu Luiyue's smile deepened and she reminded, take note, when I said, the past, I was referring to the last time I came to the world of God. If I remember correctly, you came with me at that time, right? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 13-18. The room instantly fell silent. Dumpling looked away guiltily. Chu Luiyue pinched its little head and turned back. Didn't you say that you missed me very much? Don't you want to talk and reminisce about the past? It just so happened that Dumpling could speak directly after breaking through, which saved her a lot of trouble. Dumpling turned its head to the other side again. This time, Chu Luiyue did not care about it anymore. Instead, she let go of her hand and turned to walk towards the bedroom. Since you don't want to talk about it now, then don't. It won't be too late to come back when you want to talk about it. As she spoke, she actually went straight into the room and went to bed to rest. Dumpling, who was left behind, was dumbfounded. It hurriedly looked at Chu Luiyue nervously, only to see that she had already laid down, as if she was really going to sleep. The lights went out, and the room darkened. Only the faint moonlight seeped in like water, outlining the outline of the room. Dumpling stayed where it was for a long time, its expression extremely conflicted. Just as it was about to step out with one paw, it quickly retracted it. Dumpling went back and forth several times, tormenting it quite a bit. After struggling for a while, it finally made up its mind and flew towards Chu Luiyue. Ah, you! Dumpling nestled beside Chu Luiyue's pillow and called out carefully. Chu Luiyue turned to look at it. You want to talk about it? Dumpling's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle, but in the end, it nodded its little head in embarrassment. Chu Luiyue sat up. Then let's begin. After settling Chu Luiyue down, Elder Xiaofan returned to his residence, only to find that Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng were still waiting for him. Master! Elder Xiaofan! Seeing Elder Huafeng's familiar figure, the two of them, who had been waiting for so long, cried out in surprise. Zhuosheng moved even faster and rushed over with a few leaps. Elder, you're finally back. How is Chuyu now? Are the two of you all right? A series of questions bombarded Elder Huafeng's head until it began to ache. But when he thought about how both of them had good intentions, he couldn't bear to get angry. Don't worry, that kid is fine. Although his body was slightly injured, he had obtained a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. If this was not considered good, then no one in this world could live a good life. Seeing Elder Hua Feng's reaction, Zhuosheng and Zhuosheng finally relaxed. That's good, that's good. Elder, please rest first. Let's go take a look at Chu Yu. As Zhuosheng spoke, he wanted to pull Luo Yanming away. Wait! Elder Hua Feng shouted at the two of them. Elder Hua Feng coughed when he saw their puzzled gazes. It's already so late. He should be asleep by the time he gets back. It's not appropriate for you to go now. The two of them thought about it and agreed. Then let's go tomorrow. Luo Yanming said to Zhuosheng. Zhuosheng nodded. Only then did Elder Hua Feng relax. By tomorrow, everything should be more or less recovered. That's good too. Oh right, there's one more thing. Try not to make a fuss about what happened today. Chu Yu, he. Elder Hua Feng hesitated for a moment. Recently, there have been quite a lot of rumors about him in the academy. Let's not add to this at this time. Give him some time to quietly recuperate. The two of them didn't doubt him and agreed. Yes. The next day, just as dawn broke, Chu Luyue opened her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot, and there was a faint bruise under her eyes. It was obvious that she didn't sleep well last night. She turned her head and looked to the side. Dumpling was nestled beside her. Hearing the movement, Dumpling immediately woke up. Meeting Chu Luyue's gaze, Dumpling blinked in a daze, leaned over, and rubbed against Chu Luyue's cheek. Chu Luyue's heart instantly softened. She gently rubbed Dumpling's head. Alright, it's time to get up. Dumpling glanced at her. Isn't you angry with me? Chu Luyue paused and smiled. What's there to be angry about? Didn't you already tell me everything you know? Tuanzi lowered its head and rubbed its head against her palm. Suddenly, two familiar voices came from outside. Chu Luyue stood up and carried Dumpling up. Alright, you've just broken through, so you should rest well first. You shouldn't be able to come out for a while, understand? Dumpling nodded and disappeared. Chu Luyue then walked outside. The ones who came to visit her were Luo Yanming and Zhuosheng. Even though Chu Luyue didn't sleep well the entire night, her injuries had recovered quite a bit. Hence, at a glance, other than making others think that she didn't sleep well, there wouldn't be any other problems. Seeing Chu Luyue like this, the two of them were relieved. It's fine as long as you're fine. Yesterday, Zhuosheng was halfway through his words when he suddenly remembered that he had promised not to talk about this matter, so he quickly shut up. Luo Yanming calmly changed the topic. By the way, Chu Yu, today is the Academy's open day. Do you want to go out for a walk? The so-called open day was actually a holiday that Soaring Heaven Academy held once every 3 months. It usually lasted for 3 days. During these 3 days, students could leave the academy, and the elders wouldn't ask any questions. Many students would take advantage of this time to go out and relax. For those who were closer, they could make a trip home. As for the rest, they would wander around Fangzhou City. Zhuosheng immediately became interested. That's right. We've been in the academy for so long, but we haven't gone out yet. Chu Yu, let's go together. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.